to follow along with us here.
We're in the log right now, so you know what I mean? Like if they enter the calendar under.
Well, they would have got, whoever sent the invite would have had to link it.
Yeah, it sounded like there was 2 links that went out. One went out like just on the regular email, and then there was a invitation that went out to the fire calendar. So we've got the people on the fire calendar now. We're all in the same meeting. I think we're in the same meeting now.
Okay, so the
So-
calendar is different than what went out in the email?
I guess so. We're,
Okay.
Somebody's probably set up the meeting notice. And
Yeah.
instead of copying the link from the original email, it's like they set up a new meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
we're
we
good?
put it out twice.
We think-
okay, yeah, I think we're good here. Can everybody hear me still? And are we, can you see the screen that says command doesn't like surprises? If some of you or a couple of you maybe give me a thumbs up or unmute your mic for 1 second. Anybody?
Loud and clear, Pat.
Okay, and you can see the slides now actually as well, hopefully?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks, Bob, appreciate it. Okay. Once again, we apologize. I guess there was 2 different links accidentally sent out here and we got 4 people that have had a great class so far, and the other 10 of you, or however many of you, we apologize for missing the first 30 minutes. We'll try to make sure that doesn't happen again in the future. We apologize for that. So we're talking about the importance of a 360 report, and we're talking about how command, it becomes a challenge for command if a 360 isn't completed. And a lot of that comes into play as we're talking about deployment of resources and the importance of it. And if we don't know what's going on around the back of the structure or on a different side of a commercial occupancy or something, that can be very important. Okay. So also a 360 can identify some of the strategic factors. We talk about firefighter danger. As we're making that 360 and we start noticing whether it be collapse potential, whether it be the smoke where we're seeing the pressurized, turbulent black smoke that's coming out that's probably approaching flashover conditions, whether or not we're looking at just the condition of the structure, if whether it's an abandoned structure or whatever else it may be. There's a number of things we can determine and reduce in firefighter danger just by doing a 360. We've talked about the rescue profile already and savable property. We can get a general idea whether there's anything left to save. If we make a 360 on a building and we notice that the fire is extended to 50% of the building or more, once again, that may help us determine whether or not we're going to go defensive or change the tactics and strategy based upon what we're seeing. Also, it helps us understand the fire stage. If we go around the building and we see that it's still incipient, that we can probably make a rapid entry and quick extinguishment versus that we know that we have a deep-seated fire in multiple rooms throughout the structure. It could be a challenge for us to help us provide additional information. So obviously, to make a 360, these are some of the things we might see. If we do a 360 and come around to the back of the structure and we're seeing this, it sure certainly give us concern as to whether or not, first of all, this may be the seat of the fire, which it probably is, or if not, if the whole structure looks like this, we may have to change our strategy from an offensive to a defensive strategy. It can also help us identify safety concerns. Are utilities secured? We're not going to necessarily secure utilities right now unless we can do it in 5 seconds or something. We're not going to spend the next 5 minutes trying to figure out where we're going to do the shut off on the gas and other things, but it can help us to understand whether utilities have been secured. It helps us understand physical hazards as far as pools, flammable liquid storage, hoarding conditions, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. It also helps us to identify bars on the doors and windows and whether there's casement windows, and this is a very important aspect for us because if any of you that, especially in the older portions of town, casement windows are pretty common, and if any of you have ever tried to get through a casement window, you'll notice it's extremely difficult to do. We did a drill several years ago where we had a bunch of casement windows that we had from a remodel of a house, and it was really difficult. It was one of those where it took some of our crews at least 3 or 4 minutes with tools from the outside to get through. We simulated that we had a victim inside the structure, and we tried everything from just a Halligan or a sledgehammer, pighead axe, everything from that to circular saws and everything in between. It's not easy, and I can tell you for certainly bigger fellas like myself, you'd never get out through one of those little openings. And even for small people, you'd probably have to shed all your gear to get out through some of these windows. Now, most of the windows, if any of you have ever been in a house that has casement windows, how well do they operate as far as opening and closing? They're 40 years old or 50 years old, right? So the vast majority of them, if they have even the little thing to open, the little handle to open the window with, it's either rusted shut or been painted shut over the last 15 years. So there's no way to actually open that window. So if you have a situation where you're inside a structure and you do your 360 and you notice you have basement windows, hopefully it's going to raise a little bit of the hair on the back of your neck to know that if we get inside the structure, something goes wrong, we're probably not getting out a window or door. We're probably gonna have to look at a different option. Also, if we find doors on the bar, or bars on the doors or window, should give us some other concerns for us. And hopefully, as if you're the rescue with the on-deck crew with rescue responsibilities, if you happen to get that assignment, it may be one of those where we want to go and collect that circular saw and start taking a look at removing some of those bars on the doors and windows as well to create access. Now, we're not going to open the doors or windows, obviously, and create a flow path, but we're at least going to create an opening or remove some of that stuff if we need to, if we've got a situation where we may have to some of our folks to evacuate if necessary. Also, didn't find out whether exit doors are blocked or locked in some situations. And then you can also see whether it's a room and contents fire, structure fire. So if you're making a 360 and you notice that at the eaves and you're looking at the gable ends, the gables, and you notice there's no smoke coming out, you probably have a pretty good chance that it's going to be room and contents that probably hasn't extended to the attic. Versus a situation where obviously if you have a bedroom fire, but you're also seeing heavy smoke pushing out of all the whirlybirds and the gable ends, and maybe even a little bit of fire pushing out of those, that we probably know we have extension into the attic, which is going to create another challenge for us. Encountering something like this, obviously this is just a situation where this wasn't involved in a fire. I was driving around taking pictures of buildings and stuff, and I noticed it, but this will be a little bit of a challenge to get through it from the outside in. If you're the ladder company on the rear of the structure and we have a mayday situation and somebody tells you, hey, we need you to gain access to the rear of the structure, this is not going to be an easy one to get through. It's going to take us a little while potentially, right? I mean, just between certainly not something that an engine crew with probably a Halligan and a sledgehammer is going to be able to get through. We're probably going to need a ladder to assist us in something like this. Also coming from the inside out. A lot of times they have these things dead bolted or with a double key lock. So coming from the inside out, you're thinking, hey, I made it to the back of the building. Here's the door. And now I've got it bars on the door with a double deadbolt on it to keep people from stealing stuff from the inside of the structure and taking it out the back. So now we're in a challenge once again just to get out of the structure. So just keep in mind, these are the kind of things you're looking for and you may encounter. It can also help us identify flow paths of neutral planes. And that'll help us determine hopefully maybe potentially the seat of the fire or what stage the fire is in itself. So if we look at these three incidents here, pretty obvious, or it should be pretty obvious where the neutral plane is, and that's where the high pressure smoke and heat is coming out the top, the cooler air is coming down in the bottom, and the line in between is the neutral plane. So this is Captain Obvious stuff here, but hopefully that should remind you. Now, we talk about flow paths, and flow paths, when we get into the reading smoke class here next class, we're going to talk quite a bit more about flow paths. But if you look at them, and this is one of the things that, and once again, wasn't discussed a whole lot probably until about 10 years ago, maybe a little more than that, but probably not much more than 10 years ago, where we started discussing flow paths and the challenges associated with it. We would go and you see in certain cities, not so much here, but back east, one of the first things the crews do, they go and go around and start knocking out windows. Well, what does that do for a fire that's in a vent limited stage? Gives it everything it needs, right? And then it shouldn't surprise us when all of a sudden the building's fully involved or well involved, and they go, wow, that was crazy, how'd that happen, right? Well, it shouldn't shock us. But as we arrive on the scene, if we have this where we have the bi-directional vent, whereas once again we have cold air coming in from the bottom or fresh air coming in from the bottom, hot pressurized smoke coming out above, keep in mind that right now it's probably vent limited, at least in that room right there. We have the ability to go inside and hopefully attack the fire. Now, when you start seeing as it becomes a little more involved, a lot of times we'll get a window or something that busts out. And because the exhaust port of that window is smaller than the larger opening of the door, you may see just a unidirectional flow. So you have smoke coming out and smoke and fire coming out at that window potentially, but you still have the neutral plane coming out the door. And that's because of the size of the vent, the exhaust vent, and the different pressure gradients there in between. Now, where you don't want to be is in a situation like this, where you have a unidirectional flow. So you have the air coming in from the bottom floor here. You got the fire in between there and the exhaust port upstairs, either on a second floor or basement area, and you become in the chimney of the incident. And this is where firefighters get injured and killed on a somewhat regular basis nationally. They have a window fail or somebody will take out the window on the second floor. The fire will be on the first floor. It isn't quite in check yet. It gives it the air it needs. And you got some crews that went up the stairwell or whatever to try to conduct a search on the second floor. And a lot of situations in a lot of areas, unfortunately, a lot of the crews in some of these areas, they don't have hand lines. They don't take hand lines with them, which is absolutely insane. I know here we rarely will enter a structure without a hand line. We don't do what they do in a lot of the cities back east. I watched a Mayday video yesterday of an incident that they had a crew upstairs and had a flow path and a flashover situation occur. And it was an interesting thing. It's through helmet cams. There's got 4 different views of a helmet cam. And I'm gonna probably, when we get to the Mayday class that we do here, probably another month or a couple of months here. But it's really interesting to see because all these people are inside the structure, and it goes from just smoking hot to people, firefighters screaming and trying to bail out of the structure within probably 5 seconds. I mean, you think, I mean, we've all been in hot fires and zero visibility and think, this is pretty bad. And, and you come out, sometimes your ears are a little bit burned or you get some wrist burns and stuff. But this was a situation where it was even shocking to see because typically you don't get interior footage of a Mayday occurring. And this video was pretty impressive to watch these people literally screaming and bailing out, climbing over people and climbing out the windows and doing everything else to get out of the structure. But it was a situation where they had a flow path occur, a flashover occurred in between that and that process, and it was blowtorching a whole crew of firefighters. So next thing you know, you got a firefighter on the ground outside the structure that had bailed out, that's out there just, I mean, and once again, some people aren't as good about the PPE as others. It appeared that the guys did not have his hood on. I don't know if he had his gloves on. So he's out there with 2nd-degree burns, at least 2nd and 3rd-degree burns, probably outside the structure, back on the back, just laying on the ground back there. And I mean, everybody's coming up to help him out, and you can just tell he's just, I mean, not only confused, but in incredible pain. So these are things that we just need to be very careful with, and we can recognize those flow paths sometimes in the vent limited situation as we do our 360s. So reading smoke, we're not going to spend a ton of time on this because that's going to be the next class we have, but it's a 3-step process, recognizing and comparing the 4 key attributes of smoke, which we'll talk about next. We'll evaluate if the building size or weather is influencing the key attributes. So one of the challenges, obviously, you go to a big box structure, you go to Home Depot and you got zero visibility inside of a Home Depot, we got a big problem, right? I mean, 100,000 square foot building, we got smoke from floor to top, floor to ceiling, we're in big trouble. Now, if we go into now, what the other challenges we have, though, we can go to that same Home Depot and have smoke 10 feet down from the roof, and we think it's not a big deal. 10-foot smoke 10 feet down from the roof on a Home Depot, big problem for us. Huge fire, right? I mean, those things massive. So, but now the same thing, you go into a Circle K and you got smoke 3 feet down from the roof. Still a problem we got to look at, but it's probably not necessarily the same situation as far as the size and complexity potentially of it. We also determine the rate and change, how fast the smoke attributes are changing. As you do a 360, if you notice that there was smoke pushing out the front window when you got there, it was kind of lazy brown smoke maybe that you're coming out. You do a 360, you get around to the front of the structure, now it's black pressurized smoke. Are we going to potentially have a potential catastrophic event getting close to here? I mean, we have the potential for a flashover or something else probably coming. If things have changed in 2 or 3 minutes than where it was before, you've got a fast moving incident that's probably going to go bad here very quickly if we don't change something. 4 key attributes, once again, we won't spend a lot of time on these. Everybody's going to talk about the volume of smoke, whether it's we filled the box basically. The velocity and pressure, that determines by heat, volume, and distance to the fire. The hotter the fire, the more curl and expansion will be evident. Density, this is the thickness of the smoke, identifies the amount of fuel and danger, and the likelihood of an event occurring, and then the color, which is stage of heating or type of material burning. So when would we not complete a survey? Any ideas when we wouldn't complete a 360 survey? Any thoughts? Rescue, okay. What else? Too big of a building, right? You got this building that's in front of us right here, the Safeway is on fire in Phoenix here, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was here. Do you think you'd be able to get a walk around 360 on that? I'd grab a lunch if you do. I mean, it's going to take you a while. Now, it still need to be a 360 though, right? This is one we still need to conduct a 360 at some point in time, but probably not going to be a walk-in 360. It may not be the first to company. Now, a couple of options, we'll talk more about that in a second here, just we go to the next slide, but anything else you can think of where we might not be able to get a 360? Obstacles, absolutely. Obstacles, there's a number of things, we'll talk about those as well that you might encounter that's going to make it a challenge for you. So some of the fixed complications we look at are the size of the structure, commercial versus residential. So a lot of our commercial buildings, with the exception of maybe a Circle K or something like that, is probably going to be a little bit of a challenge for us to get a good 360. It's just, I mean, there's some small commercial buildings that we might be able to do. We see 3 sides coming in. If we have open access to the back of the structure, it may only take us 30 seconds to kind of walk down to the corner and take a peek around the back, and so we can get that full 360. But once we start getting into strip malls, once we start getting into apartment complexes, once we get into just bigger commercial structures, it's going to be very difficult to do as far as that 360. Was a question? No, okay. The configuration of the structure may be a challenge for us as well. And this is sometimes it's just because of the structure, the way it's laid out, there's no alley. A lot of times in certain areas, because of building codes that occurred at the time, they build right up to the back property line. So the way to get around to this is you're gonna have to go literally to the street behind there and go into the neighbor's yard or whatever else is to be able to see what the back of the structure looks like. So it may be difficult just based upon the structure. Security fences and barriers, as you talked about. huge problem for us. Depending on commercial structures, probably a little more so than residential, but certainly after hours in a commercial building, very few, well, wouldn't say very few, but a lot of the structures, if you look at a lot of the businesses and other things that are out there, they have a a service yard in the back where they have chain link fence that separates with barbed wire, which separates out the retail portion in the front or the offices in the front with a parking lot, and the area in the back where they park all their service trucks and have all their product and other stuff. So going to be a little bit of a challenge, right? If you're a single captain, or I mean a single person making a 360, do we carry a set of bolt cutters with us for that? I don't know. I mean, we probably should, but I can tell you probably on one hand, the amount of times I've seen a company officer doing a 360 bolt cutters. We just don't do it. I don't know, maybe at some point in time we will consider that as part of the process, but we just don't do that typically. So just one of the things we need to consider. The other things that we talked about, and somebody mentioned it here earlier, active situations where we might not do a 360 is a known or imminent rescue. And I would tell you that even then, it's one of those that still needs to be addressed very quickly, but might not be with the initial company, because the one person you see on the front may not be nearly as in danger as the 6 people that are in the back that are actively exposed to the fire. So sometimes we see that one person, and it's really easy to lock in on that and say, dude, hey, we got somebody hanging off that front patio here, and we got a little bit of smoke above his head. And then somebody eventually gets around to the back and goes, holy cow, we got 4 people up on the patio up here, and there is direct fire impingement below them. They're in big trouble. So getting that 360 early on to determine whether or not, once again, whether we have somebody else, we talk about the priority of rescue and who's in more imminent danger than somebody else, needs to be addressed very quickly as well. The other problem that may be a challenge for us is if you have just a sheer volume of fire or collapse potential. If we're doing a 360 on a structure, which hopefully is also going to help us determine our strategy, and we start noticing that we have walls that are starting to separate, we've got heavy cracks in the wall already, we got fire through the roof, those kind of things that we may be a little more careful when we only have a 10-foot wall or a 10-foot gap between buildings, and I've got to decide, am I going to try to risk it to get around to the back side of this structure and hope it doesn't collapse on me before I get back? Do we roll the dice on that, or do we realize that if the conditions are in that bad a shape, we might consider doing something a little bit different there, either getting a visual from the next door or the next parking lot over or something of that nature, versus trying to taking a risk of doing that. Sometimes the volume of fire, especially with wind conditions. I've seen situations where, when you get the heavy wind and that heavy fire between structures, that you can't get through that side. You may be able to peek down that side, but you're not going to be able to get through there without running through the fireball, which is not a good one to do either. Hazardous materials. Sometimes we have situations where, just due to whether it be a leak, whether it be a propane leak, a chemical leak of some kind, where we just can't get around that side of the structure based upon hazardous materials that may be involved in the incident as well. And then down power lines may be another situation. If we've got power lines blocking the access to the only side of the structure that we can get around the back, well, we're not going to try to dance over the power lines and try to get there, right? So they had a firefighter killed with the power line yesterday on a car accident. I don't know if anybody saw that, but responded to a car accident, and while trying to get to it, one of the victims stepped on an electrical power line and was killed. Okay, 360 alternative. So what else can we do? If we can't get back of the structure by walking, what are some of the other options we have? Can we conduct a driving 360? And this is one where there's certainly situations where, based upon the layout of the structure and your arrival potential, that you can say, hey, if we go in this back side over here, through this driveway here, I can actually see the back side of the structure as we work our way around to the front here. If we catch this hydrant right here, it's going to bring us around to the front of the structure, and I've seen all 4 sides as we get there. There's some alternatives that we can do that. We can look at things like that, should consider. You can also, once again, have the next company coming in and say, I need you to give me a 360 view of the backside of the structure here, because I can't see it from here, and I need to get information on the backside. You can also assign another company, Arriving BC, telling you haven't completed 360 and we'll need somebody to address that. But one way or another, we need to address the all 4 sides of the building as soon as possible as we can, to determine whether or not we have any challenges on any more of the sides we can't see from the front. So how do we conduct a 360? The front door is going to be our typical way. This is going to be the natural entrance and exit. So this is if we have a chance of potentially locating somebody or seeing somebody in the structure, probably the front door is going to be the first we're going to see them. Most people, just like if something happened here, if we had a explosion happen here, probably 90% of us would probably try to go out the same door we came in, just because we knew that's where we know there was a door there, versus going, I think there's one, I'm pretty sure there's one through the back if I can find my way around the back of the structure here, or see here. But anyway, so start at the front door. That's where we have a better chance of probably locating and identify victims. We're going to evaluate the smoke and heat conditions at the front door, see what kind of flow path we have if the front door is open. And then obviously if the front door is open, we want to make sure we close it. If there's several videos in the live, the modern fire stuff, if you haven't looked at some of that stuff, and I would highly recommend you do, where they show opening a door and leaving a door open and how quickly things can change. And literally, they had, I don't know, 100 houses in this one subdivision that they were burning down to during some of the UL testing. And they had a structure where they went vent limited. They had the fire, it was coming out one of the windows, closed the door, everything went vent limited, so it was just smoke. And they showed that when they came up and opened one of the doors on the first floor, and so they had a flow path, they got a window open on the second floor, and probably within 30, 40 seconds, they've got heavy fire coming out the second floor and part of the first floor in just a matter of seconds, just by leaving that door open. So if the door's open, close it. If you need to open it, take a look and kind of get a quick check of what you have inside. Close it when you're done. Don't just leave it open while your crew's stretching the line and you're doing a 360. And that goes for any other doors and windows that you see as you do a 360. As you complete your 360, if you see a door that's open and you can close, now obviously there's time where the window's blown out and there's not much you're going to be able to do about that. But if it just happens to be open and you go, I can still let it close, and do so. To try to limit the fire growth if we can. Talk about door control. Once again, can be utilized by suppression crews to limit fire growth during hose line advancement. Vent limited fires provides interior crews time to advance and cool the environment, preventing secondary flashover. So I would tell you, and we're pretty good about that. I know we talk about it in the academy, but once you make entry into the structure, also don't leave it wide open if you can. If you have somebody humping hose and everything else, try to keep the door closed as best you can, because literally the difference between a door being partially open here versus wide open is significant as far as creating that flow path or giving a structure that's starved for oxygen that much additional air. Look for an RP. So as you're doing the 360, we talked about that. Get that resident report all clear if you can find it. If the wind blowing, see try to determine what direction it's coming from. Sometimes that seems simple, but I can tell you, like last night, if you guys, I'm sure most of you, if your wind was blowing like it was at my house last night, obviously the rain may have slowed things down a little bit, but obviously if you have a lightning caused fire, wind from the outside, the rain's not going to stop the fire, obviously. But if you had a situation last night where you had the wind blowing, I know they had a 68-mile-an-hour wind gust in Sky Harbor last night. So obviously there was the valley, certain parts of the valley had a lot of wind. That same situation, if you have a window failure in a part of a structure, and once again, you're between the window, the fire, and the exhaust port, you're in trouble. Wind-driven fires, I've got a number of videos of wind-driven fires, and it's amazing how quickly things can develop and how quickly things can go wrong. They had 2 firefighters killed in Houston, I think about 6 or 7 years ago with a wind-driven fire. Same deal. They had a window failure on the backside of the structure, about a 30-mile-an-hour wind, and it blow torched them before they could even get out of the structure. So, identify speed and try to operate, obviously, on the upwind side of that. Identify exposures and direction of fire spread. Once again, as you make your 360 around a structure, firstly, certainly for commercial buildings, but even residential structures, if you make your way around to the back of the structure and you realize that these are, condos or something else that only have about a 10-foot separation between structures, we got a little bit of a wind, and the fire that's coming out of this gable end is literally licking on the house next door. That should be something that comes into your mind here as far as deployment of resources, whether or not you're going to knock down the fire in the attic quickly, do a quick transitional attack in the attic before you make entry, or whatever else. Those things should come into play there as you start looking about exposures and fire spread as far as deployment of resources. Is the fire in the attic? Has the fire been at the roof? Obviously, there's a difference. Fire in an attic, a lot of times the UL says that just about every fire in an attic, unless it comes through the roof, is considered vent limited. Even though you may have a little bit of fire coming out of a gable end or a whirlybird, they say there's typically not enough air to really make the fire to be a true fuel-fed fire, because there's just not enough air to be able to get there. Now, once it burns a hole through the roof, it does, and it gets all the air it needs, and it'll continue to burn. So, but that's one of the things as you look, is there fire in the attic? Is there vent at the roof? A couple of things to think about. Look for hoarding conditions on the interior, exterior of the structure. If we have hoarding conditions outside, what are the chances of being hoarding conditions inside? About 100%, right? I mean, at least my history has been, I mean, every now and then the wife won't let you bring the crap inside that you have outside or whatever, but most of the time, if you see those situations, if you go through the backyard and you're going through paths in the backyard, probably stand by, because you probably have the same situation inside, right? And how dangerous are hoarding fires for us? What are some of the challenges with hoarding fires? When we go inside, what are the challenges associated with a hoarding fire? Fuel load, huge fuel load, right? What else? Accident. Other things? Think about anything else? Collapse. Absolutely. We had a situation, and one of the fires we went to in Tempe, that the guy collected old typewriters, and he had typewriters stacked, and I'm lying, I'm dying. He had about a 18 or 20 inch pathway that went through rooms here, and he had typewriters stacked in a couple rooms all the way to the ceiling. And now they're only about 20 pounds. These are the old ones. These aren't, the old either electric or other people, a lot of you are probably saying, what's a typewriter? But at least in this room. But anyway, these were big, heavy items. And I mean, they were stacked with a little walkway that went through the place. We had another guy that had boxes and you go inside these places and they are just loaded with crap. They've got stuff that you just go, what in the world? I mean, cereal boxes. This guy had a stack of cereal boxes. I mean, now it's not going to smash you and kill you, but it went floor to ceiling. And you go, what? I mean, obviously it can't be any good, I would think. I don't know, maybe it's a year supply of some kind, but.
Attics look the same too.
Yeah. Picture of an attic here. Now, if you go to my house, I just warn you, I have that way my wife won't let me have it. But anyway, so understand that if you have hoarding conditions, extremely difficult to get out, and extremely difficult for us to come and rescue. And so that's one of the things I know from a hoarding perspective, from a command perspective. If I got an incident with a hoarding house, there's a pretty good chance, unless I have a known rescue or we're making pretty good progress on it, that we're going to go defensive. It is too dangerous because, as you know, as you guys get inside of these structures, all it takes is somebody to tip over one of those stacks of crap that's in there on there. Now you've lost your ability to follow your hose line back out. And now you got some of the stuff. And once again, sometimes people, I mean, they've got appliances in there. They've got, you'll go to these places and they've got, bikes. They've been stealing bikes. Their meth heads have been stealing bikes for the last 3 years, and they got 250 bikes in there. What are you going to do when you stumble across that stuff? It tumbles over on your hose line and you're trying to figure out, how am I going to get out of this thing? And now conditions start deteriorating, right? Now what am I going to do? Well, these guys are paranoid, so they got bars on the doors and windows. You got a way where I can't get in to get you out. You can't get out on your own. And, we've got a fire load or a fuel load that may be significant that we can address. So I would tell you, never underestimate the problems associated with the hoarding conditions. Reading smoke, we talked about that. Just remember, smoke is fuel. Smoke will burn. So when you see that heavy black turbulent smoke, just understand it's all fuel and has the ability to flash all the way back to the fire. Also, wear your mask. And this is one Chief Mashio had in one of his discussions that I saw, and certainly this is just common sense, but wear your mask while you're conducting the 360. We should never breathe smoke. We really need to be careful about that. Coming from a guy had lost a kidney from kidney cancer, from occupational kidney cancer. There's a number. Should have wore a mask and I didn't, but the potential for smoke explosions. We had a couple of our firefighters injured in Tempe with a smoke explosion, donning their gear in front of the front door. They were about 10 feet outside the front door, pulled the line to the door, and they were masking up in front of the door, had a big smoke explosion, blew all the way out to the street, gave them both second-degree burns to their hands and faces. So anytime you're doing a 360, anytime you're even approaching a structure, make sure that you have your mask on and don't breathe smoke. Okay, so as we're conducting that 360, we're going to evaluate each side, look for victims, look for any ventilation openings, consider closing, let's say, doors and windows. Use the thermal imaging camera to help identify the rooms and compartments of fire involvement. Do this even during the daylight, and you'll see a little video here to kind of help you out with that. But identify pertinent strategic and critical fire ground factors, a list of 75 items up here. And this is one of the challenges, you guys. I know it seems, maybe it doesn't seem simple, but there is, as a company officer, if you really realize the amount of things that a company officer has to do between dispatch and making entry into a structure, it's mind-boggling. I mean, there's literally probably several hundred items you have to at least come through your mind at some point in time. Everything from building construction to the stage of the fire, to occupancy, to victims, to I mean, there's just so many different things you have to consider. Now we're doing a 360 and all the things we're locating there and stuff. It really is mind-boggling the number of things you have to think about. But hopefully, as you think about these things, you learn about these things, you practice these things, that hopefully it'll become more second nature to you, so it's not a challenge to try to remember, what am I supposed to look like when I go to the back of the structure? And if you're unable to complete the 360, obviously you assign it to the next company coming in. So you can see here just a thermal imager during the day, the differences you can see here to determine, I mean, not that you're probably terribly confused about the location of the fire, but it's not obviously rolling out the front door either. So this may be something that gives you an idea of the seat of the fire. And just helps you, once again, just to remind on the 360. I think the next one's a short video on the thermal imager here.
We scan down. We obviously pick up a hot door.
Back up from command.
Going over 200 degrees.
Team 3 is on attack.
Second floor is still not showing anything significant.
Team 2 is out, Team 3 on attack, Team 4 back up.
No visible signs of fire at this time. We just have smoke pushing. Come around again, we're showing 200 degrees. As we move over to the Charlie side, we've got temperatures over 400 degrees. Isolated in this room here. floor above, it's not showing any significant heat. We scan down the wall. Our temperatures are also about 350 down here. Our greatest concentration of heat, though, is over here in the Charlie Delta corner. Same levels here at about 200. Levels here over 300. Pointing to the point of room of involvement.
So obviously, most of the fires, well, the majority of the fires we go on aren't in burn buildings, but still, a lot of the stuff that we have here, we can determine potentially the seat of the location of the fire using a thermal imager. So I'm not sure, once again, I don't always see the company officer take a thermal imager when they go. I would hope that they would, and I would say probably in the majority of the situations we do. But there's times where just, I know as the initial company officer, there's a lot of things they're thinking about. They're trying to grab a tool, they're trying to do a quick 360, they're helping to hump hose and everything else, but we need to have that thermal imager with us anytime we enter the structure as far as the company officer is concerned. So please make sure that we do so. Also in this, I know Captain Butler sent something out about this a while back. Some of the modern fire behavior studies have also looked at the differences between modern windows and old windows. If you look at the modern window, it can hide heat signature from the multi-pane insulated glass. So you may do a 360 and not be able to see smoke and fire inside that structure, and not realize that the seat of the fire is on the back side of that window versus an older pane. If you look at the one single pane glass next to it, you can obviously see the differences in heat signatures. So even though we're going to do the 360, sometimes we still can be fooled potentially. So we're going to look for all the different signs of a fire potentially. Points to consider with the information gathered. Fire location. This will help us determine, once again, egress plan. Will all else being equal, use the fastest route to get water to the seat of the fire. Where's the fire going? Hopefully it'll also tell you that. It'll give you that idea as to whether or not it's going to be extending from east to west, front to back, this building to suite 1 to suite 2, or whatever else it is. Those are some things we ought to be looking for, probably be able to see on that 360. Typically, the quickest water is the best water. In most situations, if you look at some of the NIST information, the UL information, it'll tell you that, even when you're doing you're conducting your transitional attack, they said if it's going to take you a long time to get back to that same building or that same room, stay there and continue to extinguish the fire and have another crew make entry into the structure and do conduct the search and work your way back. Because if you knock down the fire, but it's going to take you 10 minutes to get back there, and by then the fire's already built back up, we've defeated the purpose, especially if that's the seat of the fire. So just understand, in most situations, not all, but in most situations, the quickest water is going to be the best water on the fire. So 360 report itself, how do we organize that 360-degree report for the follow-up? Report by exception. We don't need to say, the north side of the structure didn't have any hazards associated with it, or whether the east side doesn't have any hazards. We don't need to do that. Obviously, we're just going to point out the stuff that we locate, identify. Announce the 360 is complete or unable to complete. So obviously, if you don't complete the 360, you need to identify that, or at least make sure it gets relayed to commander or the next unit in if they need help with it. Utilize the tactical objectives format as a template for the report, and then report as far as fireground factors or other strategic factors. Identify the seat of the fire if you have it. Announce the plan of attack if you're command. Limit the report to 30 seconds or less if possible. So we talk about the tactical objectives format. So that means the three tactical objectives. We do the RP report of victims found as far as we address that in the report. The fire, as far as the fire goes, the transitional attack effect, if we're going to do any hazards identified as far as the property goes. So this is just a little clarification for you also. Alpha Bravo versus for directional for your on-scene reports and other things. What do you guys? Alpha Bravo. How about anybody else? Volume 2 allows either one. There's just terminology. The Bravo Charlie corner, and they may be going, okay, where is that? Oh, it's the northwest corner. Okay, why didn't you say northwest? But so keep in mind that probably most of the a lot of the anyway, just a lot of folks are very familiar with north, south, east, and west. There are people that are directionally challenged. We understand that. And there's certainly structures where it lends itself to the Alpha Bravo. If you pull up and you got a house that's on an angle and, or, you know, streets that run, I know some of the subdivisions, the streets run at different angles. So there may be times where the Alpha Bravo may make more sense, but we need to make sure we identify the alpha side when you make on the scene so everybody understands, because once again, typically alpha side is the side of the structure. So, but now structure that's on a corner, which one's going to be the address side? Which one? So if we decide that we're going to make alpha that engine runs on, we need to make sure that everybody understands the alpha side of the structure is on the location where engine 201 is located or wherever, and then it goes around there. Obviously, Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta. Just make sure it's clear. Whatever you do, the people understand. Breaking up. Turn this one off. I just turned it off. I muted it. I just did it now. Okay, can somebody online come on and tell me whether or not you can hear me here? Somebody told me we're having potential audio
Loud and
problems.
clear, sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we'll continue. Okay, so just understand whatever directional process you use, that we need to understand that that everybody on the scene needs to be aware of what the directions are as far as what we're using, as far as the identifying the different locations. So plain language sometimes is best. So here's our 360 report. We're talking about command has completed a 360 report. We're talking about live fire, property, and plan. So for example, in that incident they had here, Dobson Command has completed a 360. We have 3 victims located on a 3rd story window on the Alpha side. We have fire exhausting from a 3rd story window on the Alpha Delta corner. We don't say anything about the property because there wasn't anything there, at least pertinent initially. Engine 202 will be performing a transitional attack while rescuing victims from with ground ladders. Would be an example of a 360 report. So let's look at a couple other scenarios here. So as we look at this here, we've got a residential structure. We look from the Alpha Bravo. What are some of the things we're seeing right now that would probably either give us concern or something we might be identifying from the front of the structure? I'm sorry? Solar panels, right? We got solar panels on the roof. That's a factor for us, right? Can be some additional weighting or additional weight could limit our ability for vertical ventilation. Potential battery. We got a Tesla wall, potentially something going on here. Certainly there's going to be some battery storage somewhere, right? Anything else that just jumps at us on the front just to see what we're seeing there? Okay, so we got an air conditioner, maybe even an EVAP up there. Looks like maybe got 2 things up there, right? So we'll see maybe when we go around the back side here, but certainly that's a couple things. How about the construction here? What are we thinking here? What's the age of this building? Anyway, 70s probably, yeah, late 60s, 70s, what I'm guessing here, probably ordinary construction, right? Some things to think about. So we work our way around to the Alpha Delta side. Now what do we see here? Got a little bit of smoke, right? So we got an active fire maybe on the, looks like right now, at least on the Delta side, until we see something else till we get to complete the 360. Get around the back. Once again, now we're on the Charlie Delta side. We got that same smoke coming around the back side there. What else do we see here that we should at least identify? We got the electrical drop, right? We got the electrical drop probably pretty close there. It's not quite involved yet, but it's something we're going to probably need to keep an eye on, right? So we got the electrical drop in the back. Anything else in the backyard giving us any concern right now? Not necessarily right now, but just once again, as you're doing that 360, start looking at options. You're looking at okay, hopefully I'm peeking in those windows and can I see whether we got heavy smoke inside the rest of the structure? Or is it limited to the Delta side there? These are the things you want to look at as you make your 360. We take a peek in the window and we got this. So that's the front door interior in theory. So as you got these smaller houses like that, if you look at the front door, a lot of times you can see back into the kitchen, which is in the back part of the house. So we've obviously got some kind of working fire in the kitchen, it looks like right here, right? So we're back to the front. Our 4 things we're going to talk about: life, safety, fire, property, and plan. So command has completed a 360. We have a resident reported all clear. We have room and contents fire on the Charlie Delta corner with smoke exiting the window. We have waste level gray smoke at the front of the door, fire in the kitchen. Structure has roof mounted solar panels and overhead power line drop to the Charlie Delta corner. Engine 203 is making an interior attack from the Alpha side with a power 3. Does that make sense? Anything you would add, anything you wouldn't add maybe here to that? Okay, here's another scenario. So this, how big, what would you consider the size of this house? Is this a small, medium, or large house? Probably large. We're getting close to large, right? Probably over 2,500 square feet, probably, I'm guessing here without, we'll see as we get around the back of the structure, but I'm guessing we're probably close to 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. So this is getting into a large size structure. Ordinary construction or lightweight, probably. Probably lightweight, just, I mean, it's hard to tell sometimes, but I'm guessing here probably lightweight construction. Looks like stucco maybe over 2x4s probably. Got tile roof, so we're probably not going on the roof, or we shouldn't be going on the roof unless something else is going on here. So what else? We got a little bit of smoke showing on that front side, right? Under the eaves right now. So, right. So we're kind of, it should raise a little bit of suspicion for us as to whether or not we got an attic fire, but we're going to keep checking, right? To make sure it's not room and contents that's extended. Go to the front door. What are we seeing here? Security gate. Going to be easy to get through? Yeah, if it's unlocked, well, but try before you pry, right? Good point. I mean, how many times do we do this and bang on these things and somebody comes up and opens it, thank you, you kind of feel a little silly, but this isn't, vault security here, but it's probably going to take a couple of minutes. Maybe it's going to take somebody with probably a Halligan or a sledgehammer, at least a few whacks probably, if you know what you're doing. It may take you 5 minutes if you don't. You beat and bang on this thing and it just humiliates you like sometimes a hood latch does or a nader pin does. So just one thing to think about. So we get around the side here, we got the northeast corner. Got a little bit of smoke coming out the side here, once again into the eaves. Got a ground mounted AC unit there. Got a pool out there, right? Good point. So we got a pool we're noticing there, right? Get around the other side here, we got a little more smoke, got some pressurized smoke coming out of the attic now. But if you look at the windows are clear, right? At least what we can see right now. So I'm guessing, once again, sometimes we get surprised, but for the most part, I'm guessing right now we probably have an attic fire. Looks like we may have an isolated attic fire. We got the pool in the back, unfenced pool, so we got to be careful with that. You start looking at that, once again, design here. You got those double doors over there. Double doors probably not going to go in. They may be coming out of a bedroom, but probably those double doors are probably great room or kitchen, I'm guessing here without knowing for sure. Got the big window on the side here. This could be either a master bedroom here, hard to say, or that one back over there with the French door, maybe the master bedroom on that side. But as you go around the house, just start thinking about what the potential layout of the house is. So we're back around to the front again. Life, safety, fire, property, and plan. Command is completed at 360. No pertinent information. You wouldn't leave anything on that life because you didn't hear anything yet. We have moderate black-brown smoke showing from the west gable vent. Windows do not show signs of interior living space involvement. We have a gated courtyard that will delay entry and a pool on the north side. Ladder 206, we're making a gable end attack on the west side and transitioning to the south side interior for search and rescue and fire attack. Par 3. Any other thoughts, questions, suggestions on that one? Okay, we're about to take a break here in just a minute. So this is the next one here. So this, how about as far as the construction on this one, what do we think here? Lightweight construction, probably, right? So we're guessing this is probably made in the 90s or newer. Size of the house, what are you thinking? Probably medium size. I would guess we're probably in the, the 1,800 to 2,500 probably guessing here. Tile roof, probably going to have, triple pane insulated windows. This is looks like a relatively new house with, so you start looking at the 360. So you got a couple options here. You're going to go through the gate on the right or the gate on the left. Probably right, probably gonna be the easier one. Maybe it's hard to say. Sometimes it's gonna be a matter of which one's not locked. Sometimes the one on the right's unlocked because that's where they bring the trash cans in and out of. The one on the left they just have over there because it was built into the building. They haven't been in and out of the building in 3 years or whatever. But so we see that to start off with. Nothing visible from the front though, right? We look here now. We got a little bit of smoke. It's kind of hard to. It's not a great video of it, but a little bit of smoke in the window here, right? What else do we see here? Basement, right? Should that raise a red flag for us? Absolutely. Should make us freaking nervous as heck when we see that. We don't have a lot of them, right? We're probably maybe 5% in the valley here, I'm guessing, maybe less, of basement homes. They built a lot of them back in the day. Way back in the day, you had certainly downtown the core of Mesa, you have some cellars, you have some basements. We actually had we have a fireman that lives in downtown Mesa that dug his own basement by hand, one bucket at a time. He lives down by the old police station there. It's kind of an interesting thing. He had a cellar to start off with that was about 6 by 6. And now he's got about a 10 by 20 area that downstairs with a stairwell that's about 18 inches wide. I'm not sure the code, but anyway, one bucket at a time, if you can imagine that. Looks like it's like a prison break. It's kind of, yeah, need to flag this. It's an interesting thing. So anyway, but so you never know. But what I'm saying is anytime you see basement, it should cause you some serious concern. So we go around the back. So we get around the back of the structure. We got a pool, but it's fenced, although those aren't real heavy duty fences with a big fireman with a lot of gear. I may not go through that pretty easy. But anyway, so we see the smoke from the window well, right? So that should cause us a lot of concern here, right? Please go ahead. Did somebody say something? Okay. So we get around the back here, anything over here that gives us any concern? Not necessarily. There's no drop in here. There's no smoke right now from the gable end. You know, you look at it here, probably the little glass block of it is probably the master bathroom. You know, but anyway, you kind of go around here. Nothing that really jumps out at me here as being a problem. You look through the front window and you see this. So I don't see any active fire, but obviously you've got fire somewhere, right? And so it looks like right now we probably have a fire in the basement that maybe, will eventually extend to the first floor, but we have certainly a fire in the basement. So we've got a 360 report. Command is completed at 360. I didn't get anything on life safety. We have smoke and fire showing from the, or well, I couldn't see fire. I think it's just very lightweight in that thing. From the Delta side basement window, front door conditions are moderate gray smoke to the floor. We have a pool on the Delta side. Union 213 has made a transitional attack on the Delta basement window well. We'll be making an interior basement attack from the Alpha side and maintaining door control with the PAR 3. Okay, any thoughts on that? How do we fight a basement fire? How many of you have fought a basement fire? Okay. Was it well involved? Did you have a lot of luck? How'd you do?
I didn't have a basement fire, but we were just talking yesterday with Chief Mashew about, I had noticed one had smoke coming out of it, the other not.
Mhm.
He was talking about that could possibly be a room. So even making access down through that one hole, getting a search and then doing then isolation.
Certainly if you had a known victim, it would be a consideration because obviously you have multiple window wells and only one's got smoke coming out of it now. It would be something to consider. Now, keep in mind, anytime you're going into a window well without well, some of them have built-in ladders. I guess they all probably have to have some built-in ladder, but probably egress and access, very dangerous. I would tell you, getting in a window well to try to make access, unless somebody tells you my kid is in this room right here, then it might be a consideration for probably just to go in and do a random search in a basement with a working fire, through a window well would be one that I would probably be. And Chief Daniels, any thoughts on those? It'd be very dangerous.
Well, and that was his point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And gives you the option.
And that would be certainly, I wouldn't go probably down the one that's got the smoke coming out of it, obviously, because if somebody's in there, probably not going to be a survivable, tenable situation. But if I had a known rescue, it would be something I would consider, but it would be a high risk situation would be an understatement. That would be, we would use a lot of caution and certainly have a lot of backup but it would be certainly for a rescue only. But just keep in mind that basement fires are extremely dangerous. Hang on, whoops, sorry.
Oh, they're in there. Is that any quicker access to the basement going up real well? Or access to the line going in,
So I think his point to it was, and it was more of the rescue situation, and if there's no smoke coming from there, that means it's probably a room that is now closed. So instead of going interior through the house, trying to make it down that stairwell, working through the fire to finally get to that room, just being able to go through that one space, confirming that door is closed, getting a search on that immediate room, and then either making access back out or opening that door that's going to be going into the house onto the first floor, so that now the smoke and heat's going to be pressurized out, so then you can have a quick fire attack on that. That was my understanding.
Just keep in mind, just like we said before, anytime that a window well operation would certainly be for it wouldn't be one you'd want to take a line down there, make access to try to attack the fire from that location. At least from my perspective, there may be some other opinions, but a window well rescue might be a consideration. Certainly, if you have people in the basement that we know they're in there, and once again, a survivable condition potentially if the door is closed. But it would be a high risk situation that we'd want to really think through before we just rush into that. So we'll talk more about basement stuff in just a second here. I've got a couple of scenarios you'll see here. I'm going to try to turn the volume up that you can see here of two incidents. I think there's San Bernardino. Somebody have a comment online?
Hey, Chief, this is Sergio at Station 201. Can you hear me?
Please, yes, continue. Go, please.
I think one of the important things that we have to remember is that when we do the resident all clears and we talk to the people at the owners of the home,
Yep.
Don't bypass them when they just say, hey, everybody's out of the house. One of the things that we totally forget is that we can ask them what's the quickest way to that stairwell, or if there's any stairwells around the house or in the exterior. Doing the transitional attacks, obviously through the window wells, I believe, it's just my opinion, humble opinion, They're a lot harder than we think when it becomes to a window well because we can't control it. We don't have the nozzles for it. And besides just dumping it in there, jumping into one of those window wells, we are risking the fact that if that thing breaks, that could turn into the exhaust.
Absolutely.
So we're not going to get out of there really fast. You know, I understand if we're going to go for a rescue, but if somebody made the comment right now that if there's no smoke in the other windows, that gives you a good indication that that door is closed. So you could make it down that stairwell pretty quick, considering the fact that that door to that door to that room is isolated. Obviously, it is a chance that we're taking, but we can pressurize the top of that stairwell using our nozzles. And again, it's a chance we're taking, but if there is a risk. But the biggest thing is just if you guys do talk to the residents, ask them where that stairwell case is at and what the quickest way to that stairwell or to the basement is located versus just bypassing it.
Outstanding. I agree with that. And actually, we're going to talk a little more about basements here in just a couple of slides, and you'll see that there actually was a fatality that occurred last week with a captain, and I can't remember. I can't remember if it was Kentucky or somewhere else, but anyway, it occurred in a 5,000 square foot home. But they actually have, which I'll show you here in just a second. They've got the realtor pictures from when this house sold as $1 million 25 whatever $1 million home. Sold like a couple of months earlier. So you have all the pictures of the interior of this house, the exterior of the house. And one of the things you see, which you would see in a 360, is there's a stairwell that goes down to the basement from the outside. A stairwell, not a window well, a stairwell. But without knowing that, and unfortunately this captain went into the building and immediately, unfortunately, fell through the floor and died in the structure fire that occurred here last week. But it's one of those where, once again, if we would have done a 360 and realized we had a working fire in what appeared to be probably the basement, hopefully would have made maybe some different choices. Hard to say, but Sergio, I would agree 100%. If we get there, it's the same thing with a commercial building. If we get there and somebody says, "Hey, there's a fire in the back of the structure," you know, sometimes it might benefit us to spend 5 seconds just to say, "Hey, what's on fire? What's back there? What's the easiest way to get there? Is there a door around back? Is it locked? Do you have the keys?" There's a few things we might spend just 30 seconds doing that might save us a lot of time. And even as you talked about locating the stairwell for the basement, you know, if we can go into a limited visibility structure and we have to spend 10 minutes trying to find a stairwell with pre-burning fire below us, that's a bad form as well, right? We're going to potentially put ourselves into a situation, a high-risk situation we don't need to be in. Versus somebody say, yeah, if you go in the front door just to the right, the stairwell's on the right, the first door you come to is the stairwell to the basement. Might give us a better access and help us to get water on the seat of the fire much earlier. But we'll talk about basement stuff here a little bit more in a second. So I've got two scenarios where they've got a 360 here, and you'll see, I think it's San Bernardino. Hopefully you can hear the volume of this. I'll try to turn up just a little bit because they're kind of quiet, but hopefully you can see what a 360 looks like.
Mars direct for your text channel.
Sorry, let me turn up the volume just a little bit here. Here, I'll do it here, Polly.
Mars direct for your text channel. Ticket 224.
Single story, single family dwelling. Smoking flames through the roof. We'll be in the attack mode performing at 360. How about you going to switch attack for an update on condition?
Consider copies. Entered 224 on scene. Single story, smoke flames through the roof. All units switch attack 6, fire ground 4. Alternate fire Mars direct.
Consider Battalion 119. We'll be assuming Virginia, I see. Command post will be all located on Virginia. Hey, units assigned to the structure fire. Medic is at 224. We got a well-involved structure fire in the attic on the Charlie side. See an offensive fire. We're making access on the Alpha side. Alpha's going to be facing the engine. I'll be fire attack. So the medic truck 224. I'm going to go ahead and make you guys medic group for call. I see from Rick, no exposures and no other hazards. I see from background. We got a risk to compromise, so we're not going to be able to provide a violation. We can transition to assist fire attack if needed. Yeah, I copy break fire attack from IC.
Okay, so what did we see? Anything there that causes any concern? Do you agree with?
So a little bit.
Sorry, go ahead, please. Self-vented, right? So we get now, love California. They vent everything, and they vent it 15 times. They They are big time on the vertical ventilation and there's obviously never enough holes and anyway, sometimes you scratch your head when you got a 10 by 10 hole they walk 5 feet away to cut an additional hole, but yeah, and so it's interesting, but anyway, but one thing you did see up there, you got up and sounded the roof, what happened? Went right through. And for a change, instead of walking right around that and cutting a hole, they actually said the roof's untenable, which was a shocker, which was fantastic to see. But once again, if we get up on the roof and we start sounding the roof and it punches through, should that give us concern? And then we had a fire, Mesa, Price, and like Guadalupe, maybe a little bit further south than that. Anyway, Hoarder House, ladder company goes on the roof. I'm parked across the street. They go up on the roof sound and literally about 4 sounds in that pushes it all the way through the roof. And I mean, it's obvious at that point in time, should be anyway, but I've also been in other places where you go talk to the ladder and they come down and go, whoo, man, that was hairy up there. And you go, why were you up there? Well, you sent me up there. Well, that's not the way it works. We send you up there, but we're expecting you to use your knowledge and the findings up there to determine whether or not the roof's tenable. We don't send you up there because you just go up there to cut a hole. That's just where it's a request, not a,
Chief, I'd like to
yeah,
add,
please.
one of the things.
Got a microphone, Polly? Just so people can hear you, sorry. Captain Liddell's gonna add to this, so.
There we go. Thanks, Chief. Just to reiterate something you said earlier, which, is well said, and that is, for us to go up and just cut a hole basically, or to allow that fire, which potentially has the ability to be or to be vent limited, in this situation, it's already burned through. So that's kind of somewhat gone. But by me cutting holes to add to that potential, you're just causing that fire spread. So the reason we go to the roof to ventilate is the interior conditions, is to support operation function. So we do things today a lot differently, and probably one of the, I say, better advancements that we've done is the roof attack. It's not an end all. It's not the first thing that we always go to, but it's a tool in the toolbox. And when the circumstances, for instance, it's an isolated attic fire, it's sitting there, whether it's had even a partial burn through, that may be a great opportunity to do that roof attack. But if the conditions interior are clear and the crews are able to go in and do a rapid search of that house, it takes us from that green back to that yellow. For me to go to the roof, as you saw, and for him to punch through on that roof, there's no true gain for me cutting that ventilation hole except to cause that fire to spread faster and rip the rest of that roof completely off, cause this thing to go defensive and our interior crews to be removed. So it's things like knowing in that 360 and a ladder, and we're going to get to it later, whether the interior crews are able to communicate what is that interior conditions. Because if you're telling me the interior conditions or interior conditions are clear and you're going in to fight that fire and I'm looking at it, it's already burned through on the back side of the house. I'm not just going to go to the roof to cut a hole. I love to cut holes, but make no mistake, there's no gain there. I'm actually causing the opposite effect. So I just wanted to point that out, that by adding that fuel source or by giving it air, I'm going to cause that whole thing to go worse. That event is going to go immediately into a defensive type operation. So I think in there, they came in, they're pulling ceiling, they're fighting it from underneath. If I wanted to go up there and try and accent that by hitting it from the upper as well as they're hitting it from the lower, I think that that's a much better tactical approach. And again, to Chief's point, I'm glad that they didn't cut the hole. But for me to cut a hole in the roof, it's for a purpose. It's to get interior conditions clear for us to provide not only our interior crews to get in and get to the seat of the fire, but really it's about, for me, it's about the search. So I either do that through PPV or I do that through a vent hole. So just wanted to cover that latter aspect.
Yep. Thank you, Polly. And you can see, yes, please.
360, he went to the back of the structure and saw that most of that fire was back there. Why did he, the opposite side, right? You're teaching in 360, if we're doing that, then we're going to that Charlie side to make a fire attack.
I would say probably be a better choice. I couldn't see in the front door very well, so I couldn't tell whether it extended through there, but it looked to me like the seat of the fire was behind the structure. So I would say probably a better attack from the initial transitional attack would have been from the rear. California, if you watch a lot of their videos, aren't real big. They're about 50-50 on the transitional attack stuff. So I don't know if they're just not, some of them don't buy into it, or some agencies are just not supportive of it, but they're about 50-50. Some of the videos I watch, they do a great job on the transitional. Other times they come in the front door every time. So, but good point. Also, looking at this picture right here, what do we notice here? Any thoughts? Lath and plaster, right? This is a butt kicker. For those of you that ever tried to pull lath and plaster, it is a pain in the behind. So it's one of those where if you recognize that either during the 360 or while you're inside, just keep in mind that this changes the operation a little bit, because the ability to create, and a lot of times we don't necessarily want to create a large opening from below when we get inside. Ow, I'm just kidding. So when we when we get inside and we start making the attic attack, a lot of times we don't want to pull the 4x8 sheet like we used to in the past. Now we're keeping the hole small so we can limit the ventilation, but we get the same water up in there and try to extinguish the fire. So here's another one, another incident they have.
5th Street, BN 5th, number 5. Victorville 168, tactics on 1 fire ground 3. Alternate attack, fire marks direct.
Paramedic engine 311 is on scene. Single story, single family dwelling. Heavy smoke and fire showing from the alpha side. We do have an immediate exposure to the occupancy to the delta side. Medic engine 311 will be in the attack mode, switching to attack. I'm only going to switch over monitor for 360.
Medic engine 311, I copy on scene. Copy for size up. All units responding to B Street and 5th Street. Switch over to attack and wait for 360.
So what do we call the size of this house? What do you think the size of the house? Small, right? Probably small house. Obviously good working fire there on the front corner, but
Com Center, medic engine 313 is on scene. I'll be assuming 5th Street IC. ICP will be located at medic engine 313.
Medic engine 313, I copy on scene, assuming 5th Street IC. ICP to be your vehicle.
Box is full.
All units responding to 5th Avenue B Street structure fire. 360 complete. We got heavy smoke and fire from the alpha side. Direct exposure on Delta. Unknown on occupancies, whether it's evacuated or not. No life hazard.
green line.
Offensive strategy. We'll be assuming fire attack. Be transitional until we get standby in place. Medic engine 311 has a water supply.
Battalion 147 copies your 360 and assuming fire attack.
Okay. So if we look at that right there, did 360 small residence, right? We had heavy fire coming from the Alpha Delta corner, basically. Did a 360, got some pressurized smoke coming out the Delta side. Anything in the backyard give you concern? Sub-level, right? Yeah, the additions, it definitely looked like there was additions, because from the front you go, I'm guessing a couple of those additions probably weren't there when it built in 1955. Also, the drop-off. You go around there in the back with a limited smoke, it's only about 3 feet, but is it enough to blow out a knee? Cause somebody a back injury that may be career-ending? Potentially. So I'd probably mention that we have a drop-off in the 3-foot drop-off in the backyard, maybe just, once again, kind of unusual. You don't see that in most places, right? Also, there's a couple steps up into the residence. Did you notice that in the back? What does that usually indicate potentially? Subfloor potentially, right? So just something to consider. May not be a basement probably, but a lot of the old houses, they built the subfloor, right? To get some ventilation in there back before their air conditioning. So maybe a slip trip fall hazard, maybe another area for the fire to extend. Just some things to think about and just be aware of, but it's just those little things you're trying to pick up as you're going around the building. You got that heavy smoke coming out that side, fire out the front. They actually did a transitional attack. If you noticed, by the time he got back there, the fire was all knocked down before they made entry. It was on the front door, but the door was open. I'm not sure if it was do you remember if it was when he walked by? The front door had bars on it, but it was open when they got back to it. So I'm not sure if somebody forced that or whatever. But just something to think about. Pretty good 360 gives you an idea of just some things you want to be looking for. So we've kind of got into this a little bit. We're going to get into just a little bit more. So if you find this during your 360 survey, the concerns it should raise, obviously we got a fire in the basement. Do you report it right now or do you plead it after the 360? If you come around and you see that. Report it right now. Would you stop right there and declare that? Potentially, right? Because especially if I'm first due, maybe I might wait a few seconds and knowing that if my firefighter hasn't made entry. But if I'm coming around, I was the second or third due company and I come around there and they haven't reported a basement yet, I'm going to stop right there and make sure I know, hey, engine 205, if they left you your unit, get in a 360 to command, be advised, we've got a basement with a working fire in the basement on the Bravo side or whatever it is. I would stop immediately and let people know that this is a high risk situation. When anytime you have a basement fire, it's a high risk situation, really is. This is an incident of a fatality that occurred. It's been a couple years ago now, but a basement literally walked in the door, made a right turn for a right wall search and immediately fell into the basement. Was killed. But a couple things to think about, just to understand basements, the challenges you have with basements, not always easy to identify unless you do a 360. Limited access and egress we talked about, most of the time it's just one way in, one way out, other than the window wells for the most part. Flow path is predictable, but can be hard to control. Usually it's going to be right up that stairwell in most situations, sometimes out of a window well, but most of the time the largest exhaust port or port to create that opening is going to be the stairwell. Working over unchecked fire, the tick can be misleading. They used to say, hey, as long, you go in, you scan all 7 sides as you come into the structure. They've shown a lot of with the UL studies, they show that a lot of times you can't see the fire in the basement through the floor because of the new insulation, some of the thin set they pour over the basements, just all the design now. They said a lot of times you will not be able to tell as you come into the structure and just do a scan with your thermal imager whether there's a fire beneath you or not. We don't enter window wells to fight fire. We've talked about that already. Numerous line of duty deaths in fire department basements. This is came from NIOSH yesterday. Came out with that fatality that occurred last week with the captain. It just talks about, just says one of the most dangerous fires we fight is a basement fire. Once again, the increased risk is due to limited entry and egress, working above the fire weakened floor structures, caught in the flow path, unknown fire load, ventilation issues. All those things come into play with the basement fire. It's extremely dangerous. We need to be very careful. If we talk about basement fire just for 10 seconds is, trying to put one out is very difficult because there's if you try to figure out, I've been in there a situation where we tried to do in a big house in South Tempe, like back in my day, back in like 85 or 88, it was just a chimney. We sent probably literally 8 or 9 crews down this thing, and every one of them came back just burned up. We could not get this fire out. We literally were looking, I think we talked about in one of the last meetings, we literally talked about getting high expansion foam and filling the basement up. It was just kicking our butt. We couldn't figure out how to do it. We were cutting holes. We were using chainsaws to open windows on the first floor to cut holes just inside the window from the outside, cutting holes to try to stick nozzles just through the hole and let it spray in there to try to do anything we could. It was just creativity and just a huge challenge for us. Not easy to do, very dangerous, but not something you want to walk around inside of a structure with the basement fire. Okay, let's take 5 minutes here and we'll continue. We'll do some more scenarios and you guys can start giving your reports, your 360 reports. Take 5 minutes, please. We'll come back at 9:40, which is 9:45. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started again. Can somebody out there on mic or unmute and tell me that you can hear me? Move on here. Anybody? Online? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me out there?
Yeah, we can hear you, Chief.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna get going here. Let's talk about a ladder 360, and I'm gonna have Paulie talk about this a little bit here. And we've talked about a 360, obviously it's from an either engine or ladder perspective. But we're also gonna talk about as a ladder company officer, if you're doing that initial 360, or if you're doing a 360 as a ladder company and you arrive on the scene just before you make the roof or whatever you're gonna do. Paulie's gonna talk a little bit about some of the stuff he looks for, or we should look for from a ladder's perspective. Go ahead, Paulie.
Okay. So these are just a couple things, experiences have shown me, and again, talking with other ladder companies. I mean, we discussed a little bit of this in our regional ladder company stuff as well, but very, very similarly to a typical 360, we're just taking in smoke conditions, and I use that quickly to fade back. I'll use the example of the video that showed before. In that 360, one of the first things I noticed is that entire structure was completely charged in smoke, and it was pushing under pressure volume smoke throughout that entire structure. To me, that structure, that's a red flag that says, here you have a fuel-rich environment that's looking for that oxygen. If that engine crew or whoever goes in there and we're not somehow removing the fuel, and the only way to do that, in my opinion, in that situation is a direct vertical ventilation. So in my 360, some of the first things I do is I'm looking at the eaves, I'm looking at construction, I'm looking at where the smoke pressure is coming from, how much of the box or the house or the structure is charged with smoke. Is there living conditions within that? So first floor, second floor. If I come around and I notice that maybe there's 1 or 2 bedrooms that are livable spaces, that to me potentially is going to be an area that either I want to consider doing ventilation in or around, so that I can also remove some of that should crews need to get in there and do that. But ultimately, making sure I'm supporting the engine companies being able to not only get in there quickly, but any survivable victims. And so you don't want to have an engine crew go in there and then you have somebody either smash out a window or have other uncontrolled windows. So another key piece is when I look at a structure and I do that 360, I'm looking at windows and doors, and are they closed, are they open, and are they contained? So and we've all been there, if the cops show up early, hate to pick on them, but they start smashing out windows, these are now uncontrolled openings that I no longer have the ability. So for me, for instance, to take a PPV approach and think, hey, once we start to get water on the fire, it may not always be the best option. Vertical ventilation is always our safest, is what I say. So if I can't control my openings from a ladder perspective, I'm going to lean towards vertical ventilation so that I'm lifting and getting that smoke hopefully up and out of the structure, so that not only are guys not bathing in it, which we've proven can be, riskful as far as cancer, but bigger than that, I'm concerned that those other openings are going to add to that fuel mixture with oxygen. And those environments, if you haven't been, and I've unfortunately have seen a few, they can potentially ignite. So those are the key red lights. Electrical drops and things like that we've discussed as well, but those are important. Which side of the roof? Solar panels. Am I going to get up on a roof? Often the solar panels are one side of the roof or the other. So I want to adjust my ladder placement. If I know that solar panels are on the front, I may tell my crew as I complete my 360, hey, we're going to approach this from the back side of the structure. So I always talk about the peak quickly, and I'll just mention that, is that, both sides of a roof have a peak to them. For instance, if I've got fire on one side of the peak, or I have solar panels on one side, that doesn't negate that me having the ability to go on the back side, still cutting a hole at that high peak and still being able to reach through with a rubbish hook and penetrating a bedroom on the front of the structure, even though I'm operating on a safer portion of the roof. If there's fire impingement on that front section, that's not the side of the roof I want to be on. So all those things are, from a ladder perspective, I'm trying to gather in my mind and then be able to communicate that. And we did have one where we thought the guy went back in and the only livable space I was able to identify was a bedroom. And we were potentially considering a vent enter search on that. I just advised command, hey, I'm going to cut a hole on the roof peak anyways. I'll go ahead after ventilating what the house was charged with. We were able to then punch an additional hole directly over that bedroom and basically ventilate that bedroom prior to them trying to do an entry or a vent enter search.
Thank you, Paulie. Okay, so we start looking at things we're going to see on 360. Obviously, if we make a pass around the house, as Paulie talked about here, and we've got solar panels on the roof, it's going to give us some concern. We're looking at scuppers, obviously look at parapet levels. There's a number of things we check as we do a 360 that, in addition to just for the other things we've talked about already, but some of the things that come to mind. Here's some hazards that we look at for also during the 360. Locked gates. What do we do with the locked gates? Can we get through a locked gate? I mean, most of the time it's pretty cheap. And most of the time you give it a good size 12 and it's probably going to come open. Other times it's going to kick you behind and maybe a little more difficult. But can we climb block walls? We can. It doesn't work very well. I've tried a couple of times and it's not good for big people. But it's possible, but it's one of those where the potential for injury and other things probably is a little more than we probably are looking for. Wooden fences, can we maybe instead of going through the gate, just take a section and pull out a couple of, if not the whole section, pull out a couple of boards and give us enough room to get through maybe? How about the 4x8 by 16 blocks? Can we pull those over? Yeah, about every, 3 courses, any concrete folks in here, block layers, every 3 or 4 courses, they have the ladder little thing to kind of keep it intact, but you can probably take down at least a few layers and probably push the whole fence over if you want. I know I've seen that before. But anyway, some different options we have if we need to. Can we look over the neighbor's fence? If we can't get in the backyard because of the fire, the wind, or whatever else, can we take a quick peek over the neighbor's fence and see the back side of the house maybe? Right? I mean, we don't always have to get into, if this gate's open and right next to that one, maybe I peek over this one instead. Angry dogs. Have we ever encountered angry dogs in the backyard? Freaking dogs, man, those things are protective as the son of a guns. I can tell you that I've watched I watched a lot of firemen run from big dogs. It's unpleasant, but most of the time, especially if we have the RP out front, they can grab the dog and tell them, hey, grab your dog, get your dog, and let us so we can get them out of the way here. But be careful also, try not to let the dog out, because I can tell you a lot of owners are more worried about their dogs getting out than their house burning down, so be careful about that. Transitional attack, people say, can you do a transitional attack from a neighbor's yard? You can, just understand we normally try to get the 30, 40 degree angle, whatever it is. So we're not gonna get the same angle, we're not gonna get the same water mapping, but we can get water in the space, right? We can, if you've watched the UL's video on water mapping, obviously if we hit the back wall and it's still gonna splash and gonna run down and cover some areas, but not nearly as well as obviously if we get the extreme angle and go up, hit the roof and become like the sprinkler system, but we might be able to get some cooling effect, right? So it's better than probably nothing to consider. But fire can be an obstacle, as we know, so just keep in mind sometimes dogs are unpleasant. We make that 360, we're looking for those drops. We're not going to secure utilities as we go around, but you might just be aware of them. If we have power lines down in the yard, it's an emergency traffic issue. So we're looking for those, the drops, making sure we're keeping an eye on those as we're making our 360. Pools, swimming pools. Has anybody in Mesa ever fallen into a pool before that we know of? I was gonna say, we had a guy in Tempe we called Aquaman for some reason. He was anyway, they had actually, there's an incident that occurred near miss that occurred, I think it was in Kentucky, in a swimming pool. It's a detached pool, but in an enclosed area at a Holiday Inn, I believe it was. A bunch of firemen went, zero visibility into a the pool area. And a couple of firemen fell in there, and it's not as easy to get out as you think sometimes, with the floor being slick and everything else. It was a little bit of a challenge for them for a few minutes until they got everybody out. It was a Mayday situation. I mean, it wasn't for long, but just for a few minutes. But if you can imagine, if you're unable to get your partner out of the water and he's in water, he can't touch the bottom, it could be a little bit of a challenge for us. How about empty pools? They're dangerous as well, right? This is a fire that occurred, less than a month ago here. I don't remember the exact location of it, but it was a fire that had, but that's a danger as well, right? Especially at night. You come into this thing at night, there's just about a 4-foot wide cool deck around that edge there. If you happen to go around the back side there and you have limited visibility, a little smoke hanging to the ground a little bit, pretty easy to take a spill in there, right? How about this? A little bit of a challenge for us? Dangerous, right? Pressurized cylinders, propane tanks, large propane tanks. Just something to consider, not necessarily something you're automatically going to do something with, but certainly something you're going to probably identify in the 360 and be aware of, let command be aware of it. They may need to get a line around back to protect those lines or to keep to keep them in check, just to be aware of them so we don't have the detonation. Like for those of you, if you remember that last video that I showed you last class, where the chief officer was making a 360 of the residence, the garage fire, when the 5-gallon propane tank exploded and showered stuff for about 75 or 100 feet. Hoarding. We've probably all seen this stuff, right? They got some great fish mounts in there I'd love to have, or I'd love to catch, but a real challenge to get through, right? How are we going to get in there and search that? We can't, right? And if we have somebody, even a known rescue in here, how are you going to get somebody back there? How are you going to, because if you guys ever watch Hoarders, I love that show. If you watch hoarders, the people, they get back in those little corners, they got one little nook that they've got about a 4 by 8 foot just area that's carved out of maybe a bed or something that they have a little mat back there that they try to sleep in, right? So it's not unusual to find those people in there and to find them trapped in there potentially even. But for us to get in there, this may be a deal where you go, it's just not a tenable situation. It's not safe for us to go in and try to get them. And it's just too much, because trying to get through this thing right here would be a hot mess if things go wrong. This is a situation they had in Tempe, was a hoarder house with casement windows. So just showing you that, once again, not only do you have the stuff, but you have the casement windows trying to get in and out, high risk deal. They went defensive. This is an attic, just showing the stuff. I mean, we've all been there in the attic where you're trying to pull ceiling in the garage or whatever, and you go, I can't figure out what's going on. And then you get up there and you go, holy cow, we can't figure out why we can't put out the attic. Well, there's freaking 10,000 pounds of material up there. Not only the weight and potential collapse issue, but just the fuel load. I mean, freaking stuff up there, you just go, holy cow. So just a couple of things to think about if you're the RIC on deck crew with rescue responsibilities. Obviously, they're doing the 360 as well. They're looking for access and egress for firefighters, location and condition of the company locations, specific hazards, collapse potential. These are all things that the RIC company should be looking for. The building, we're looking at, is it occupied, unoccupied, vacant, or abandoned? Why does it matter? Any thoughts? Risk management, right? If we come up to an abandoned building, you know, is that a high risk for us to go into? Potentially, right? Because has it been abandoned for 10 years and been deteriorating? All the, you know, everything's just rotting and deteriorating, potentially a problem for us. You don't know what's inside there. How about just vacant? Is vacant dangerous for us? Can be. I mean, it may be something that just, they emptied the occupancy, just left here last week and it's in good shape potentially, but we don't know. Unoccupied, once again, kind of the same situation versus occupied. Just things we need to think about as we pull up and we see boards on the windows and doors. I mean, there's, you know, those are challenges and that you just need to be aware of. Let's talk about some practice. So who would like to go first on a 360? Anybody want to volunteer to be the first one? We'll do an on-scene report. And for those of you out there, we're going to go operate on channel E6, Edwards 6. Pardon? Okay. So we're going to Edwards 6. Nope.
Mesa Fire Alarm, ERWC, the Mesa Fire Training System.
Give me a radio check there to make sure we're all on the same channel. Give me a radio test, will you? All right, I think we're all on the same one. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll do a 360 and I'll have you give a on-scene report to start off with like we normally do. And then I'll have you give the follow-up 360. And then we'll stop and we'll talk about that and just some thoughts about the incident itself. Okay, so we're ready. We'll give you it'll show you when to give you a 360 report. So I'll give you a couple of seconds on this one. Okay, so whenever you're ready. Engine 209, go ahead. Alarm copy, you've got a column of smoke, balance will work in fire.
Door 9 to alarm, channel B3.
Engine 209, go ahead.
Engine 209 is on scene, 708 west baseline. We have a single family residence, lightweight construction, hidden tile roof. We have black smoke coming from the Alpha and Charlie side of the structure. Engine 209 will be in offensive mode on a three-quarter hand line for infrastructure. Original ability water supply will be at engine 209. I'll have a 360 report follow.
Alarm copy, engine 209 is on the scene at the dispatch address, single family resident, lightweight construction. You have a pitch tile roof. You have black smoke showing from the Alpha Charlie. What would you say? What size? I'm sorry. What did you say? you have smoke showing from the Alpha and Charlie sides. Engine 209 will be offensive strategy, taking an 1 3/4 for interior and search rescue fire attack. I reckon water supply will be established at engine 209, 360 report to follow.
Command alarm.
Command, go ahead.
I'm going to be assuming baseline command. I do have a 360 report all done, complete. I have no additional hazards to note on the structure. I do have smoke and flames coming from the Charlie side gable end, transitioning to the interior with a par of 2, working towards a primary all clear.
Copy, no additional hazards. You will be baseline command. You have fire showing from the gable, Charlie gable vent. You will be transitioning to the interior in the offensive strategy. Is that correct? Okay, so let's talk about it for a second. Let's go back and we'll walk through this here. Okay, so, sorry. Okay, so we got a single family, single story residence, lightweight construction, tile roof, right? Everybody agree with that? Probably, you can call it a different size. You can call it medium, small. What would you call the small, medium, anybody? It could be a small, and but we're probably guessing the 1,300 square foot range probably here without knowing anything more than that, but probably I would say either, you might stretch medium, but probably small is what I would call it. You've got smoke showing, obviously, as we work our way around here. We've got smoke and fire showing from the gable end on the Charlie side. Anything else in the backyard give us concerned at all? Not really, pretty clean, right? I don't see anything unless somebody else does here. This side, anything else jump out at you here? No, I mean, they got the propane tank probably in that barbecue, but it's away from everything, so I probably wouldn't mention anything here, so I'd probably say, now looking at the construction, see, we got the big double doors here, something I would at least take a peek inside. You can see whether or not we had any involvement in there. You could probably even mention that we don't have any smoke in the interior, or if we do, just to kind of be able to clarify whether or not the fire's on the interior floor, or whether we have a room and contents extended, or whether it's the attic fire itself. So probably not a lot to see there. I mean, not a lot that I would worry about here. And then, like you say, so your life safety reports, you said no known rescues or anything, right? You didn't have anything there. You had fire showing from the gable end Charlie side, and then you were pulling 1 3/4 of the interior. So let's add real quick. Do we make a transitional attack into the gable end before we make entry? Okay, probably so, right? Now, one of the things to think about now, obviously, for those of you, and I would, once again, I can't reinforce enough, if you have time, go watch the UL videos. They're fantastic. Gives you a lot of information about some of the modern fire behavior and some things that we can do. It just really reinforces. But gable end attack is good. Bird board attack, I mean, ideally they said, bird board attack probably is one of the best methods of being able to knock down the fire, because you get water on the, not only up on the seat of the fire, but it covers the roof, the undersurface of the material that's superheated, the undersurface of the roof, the plywood or OSB or whatever it is. You have great access and really good, works well as far as extinguishment of the fire. And you come in through the gable end, just understand that with the gables, obviously each one of the trusses, how they stick down at least 2x4 right as you work your way down the structure, and you spray down there that you can't actually get the surfaces very well. You're trying to hit down there as best you can. Now, if you just shoot through the gable end, it's going to go up, probably hit the roof and spread out a little bit right there, and may work a little bit. And it's not, certainly would be probably the initial attack, but obviously as we start talking about if you're given the assignment for gable end attack, there's some things we need to think about there as far as being able to, they say even better than actually going up to the gable end. A lot of times they say is to drop down just above the bottom plate on the truss, cut a hole about this big and work the water in there, so that you're actually at a lower level that's getting in and getting more coverage versus up top here where you're spraying and the trusses cover more of the surface area on the roof. But either way, getting water into the attic. Now keep in mind also, how much water are we adding? How much weight are we adding? Right? 175 GPM, 8 pounds per gallon. Let me do the math with 1,000 pounds a minute, something like that, right? So just keep in mind that this isn't something we open the thing and go get a cheeseburger, right? This is something we're selectively opening the water, opening the nozzle, applying water where it's appropriate, and then shutting down the water and seeing if we've completed things. Now, one of the things that we're looking at, and we'll hopefully, and this is just merely interesting for you, but at some point in time with the attack spike, there's some different tips that we're looking to purchase and potentially put on all the companies versus just the ladders. That will give us some other options with the superfine particles that work really well from a gable end perspective and bird board and some of the other things, but those are a little bit in the future. But anyway, so I thought pretty good 360 report. Anything that anybody else would have added to the 360 report? No? Okay, thought it was pretty good. This is, I mean, gave you some pretty good information on that. Okay, who wants to do the next one? Please. Okay, so you can call yourself whatever company, just like he did, whatever your company you want to do, whatever address you want. All right. So we'll give you the, I see all four sides here, so I'll give you 30 seconds or so here. Okay, whenever you're ready.
Engine 218 to alarm on channel B3.
Engine 218, go ahead.
Upgrade to a first alarm.
Alarm copy, we'll upgrade the incident to a first alarm assignment.
Engine 218 to alarm.
Engine 218, go ahead.
Engine 218 is on scene of 740 South Alma School. We have a two-story lightweight constructed family residence, pitch, tile roof. We have heavy smoke coming from the Alpha Bravo side of the structure. Engine 218 will be Alma Command. Command will be mobile in the offensive strategy, pulling an attack line, doing a transmol on the Bravo side of the structure.
Engine 218, or water and accountability will be at engine 218. IRIC will be established. IRIC will be established. 360 to follow.
Alarm copy, engine 218 is on the scene at the dispatch address. You have a two-story structure, lightweight construction, pitch tile roof, heavy smoke showing from the Alpha Bravo sides. You'll be Alma School Command, offensive strategy, mobile. Command will be mobile. You'll be conducting a transitional attack from the Bravo side. IRIC and water supply will be established. The 360 will be completed. Get everything? Okay. Go ahead if you want to.
Alma Command to alarm.
Alma School Command, go ahead.
360 is complete. I do have a what appears working basement fire. We also have a pool in the back. I do not have a resident, all clear. No other hazards.
Alarm copy, 360 is complete. You have located we do have a working fire in the basement. You have no resident reported, all clear, and no other hazards noted at this time. Okay, so let's go back and let's talk about it. Okay, what are we seeing from the start here? Sorry. What are we, big house, small house, what size? Large house, probably, right? We're probably 3,000 square foot or so. So anything above probably 2,500 is getting close to large, so I'd probably call it large. Lightweight construction, pitch tile roof, like you said there. We got smoke coming out the front door, coming around the back side, the Bravo side, and maybe Charlie, hard to say there, looks like all those sides here. So obviously got a good working fire, black smoke, right? Where this isn't an incipient fire, this is a pretty good fire. So should be raising some concerns for us. We get around here, obviously we notice the window wells, we got fire coming out the window well, right? So we got a basement fire. So, I mean, Captain Obvious here, but not something we want to ignore, right? So it's something we're seeing. We've got obviously working fire in the basement. We come around back. What do we see here? We got a little smoke, and I don't know, maybe it's supposed to be fire. I can't tell. But anyway, we got smoke coming out the window here. What's the story with the 4-step thing? What do you think that is? Freaking tri-level. Hate the tri-level. Freaking bane of every command officer in the country. So there's a challenge. What do you call it? You know, is this a basement, first floor, second floor, third floor? Is this second floor, you know, the tri-level floor, the first floor, and then obviously a basement? Is this a 4-level house? I don't know, but man, this was a challenge, right? It's gonna be a challenge for us as far as identifying what we're gonna call the different sectors. You know, is it just gonna be interior 1, interior 2, 2, 3, and 4? Is it, you know, sector 1, 2, 3, and 4, basement sector 1, 2, 3? I don't know, but it's a real challenge for you. But anyway, in the meantime, for you guys anyway, it should just at least raise a concern for you, at least an awareness issue, right? It should be something you go, okay, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna see some stairwells going downstairs, I'm gonna see some going upstairs, I'm gonna see one that's probably a 3-step stairwell inside here. Just need to kind of try to keep everything in place here and kind of understand where we're at. but a good working fire in the basement, right? It should give us some real, it should really raise the hair on the back of your neck coming into this building, first floor here. I mean, this is one where we sound the floor. How often do we sound the floor in a structure fire? Never. How about, if any ever sounded the floor in a structure fire before? Not often, right? We just don't do it very much, right? That's not our bread and butter. We don't do it. So this is one here, just like a ladder company, you ought to be coming in sounding the floor as you go. And I mean, and not only that, but being incredibly pessimistic on this deal. So just being sure that we're being very careful that we don't fall through the floor, because it does happen and it happens on a regular basis. These, if you look at the construction of the basement here, the subfloor on the basement, you know, it's probably 2x2 little open web trusses, pieces of crap with an OSB thrown over it, and, you know, some tiles, some big, you know, 18x18 tiles that hide all that stuff. Everything looks like it's intact till you walk in there and just everybody disappears into the basement. Not easy to get people out of the basement. If you guys have ever looked at the drills and watched some of the drills on how to get people out of a basement, not easy to do. Have we ever practiced, anybody ever tried doing the little basement recovery with the hose line thing or anything like that before? Yeah, it happened. I mean, it's one of those you probably need to think about, but once again, basements are so few and far between, it's hard to burn a whole training session on basement rescues, even though obviously if you have one, it's you know, incredibly important, but it's hard to do that for the isolated incidents that we have with those. But anyway, be aware of that. The big things like Mayday incidents, the big thing here is prevent the Mayday, not how are we going to rescue somebody. We need to make sure we don't get ourselves into that situation. Chief Daniels, or Chief Loughlin, any thoughts on that? Any concerns?
No, the kind of basically pretty good. I just want to throw out one thing.
Please.
This is more for everything, not just the 360, but when you're upgrading, consider you're going working fire, which is fantastic.
Oh, you can turn on the mic.
Really, sorry.
No, sorry, I want people to be able to hear you. Very important. Okay. Go ahead, Chief Loughlin, please.
This is just something that isn't necessarily specific to the 360 we're doing today, but just for everybody kind of out there listening. When you upgrade to a working fire, just make sure you understand you're only going to, generally speaking, you're only going to get one engine as far as resources you can deploy. If you had an LT on the initial dispatch, you'll get a ladder and an engine, but you're not getting a whole lot of work capacity out of a working fire. You're getting utility truck and stuff like that, but now, and that's assuming you didn't have 2 or 3 engines to jump the call. So you may not be getting anything additional, but just when you decide what you're going to do, working fire, first alarm, whatever, and I think working fire is appropriate, but just make sure you know you're only getting one engine, generally speaking.
Good point. Please, Greg.
It's a basement fire, but it's obviously extended to the second floor or the first floor already. So maybe on your 360, that basement fire that's obviously extended.
Yeah, so if it, and that back picture is kind of hard, I'll go back to it real quick. It's, sure. So that right there is kind of hard to tell because I didn't make the slide here. There was just a relay of somebody else's, so I kind of hard to, but it looks like it's obviously, if it's supposed to be fire in there, it may have extended into that first floor. And if it's so, we need to point that out. We want to make sure that people understand that it's not only in the basement, but it's extended to the first floor or wherever it's extended to. We need to point that out as well. So, but this is just a challenge. We won't harp anymore on the basement, but this is but I think good acknowledgement. Just understand that this is a high risk situation. Anytime we have a working fire and we're working above the fire, it's a high risk situation. We need to be very careful. Okay, let's see. Who wants to go next? Okay. All right. So we'll give you a couple of different pictures here. Okay, so whenever you're ready, that's all you're going to get, unfortunately, is you decide to take the easy route today and you decide you're going to only do a 270 instead of the 360.
I'm looking at the outside right now.
This is Alpha Bravo corner, kind of. The front side is over here to your right, just like it. No.
Leave those there, please.
Can somebody mute your mic here, somebody with an adorable kid? Can you mute your mic?
Sorry.
No problem. Okay. Okay, so anyway, so this is, so basically what you've seen here is let me go back one slide. Oops, okay, so. Sorry, wrong way. Other way. Okay, so this would be the Alpha Delta corner. And this is the Alpha Bravo corner. So we're kind of on the Alpha Bravo corner here. So Charlie's on the backside. You can't see, and you didn't get, so.
Engine 224 to alarm on channel E6.
Did you say 224?
Yeah.
Okay. Engine 224, go ahead.
Engine 224, can you upgrade working fire?
Alarm copy, engine 224. You want the balance for working fire assignment?
Engine 224 to alarm on channel E6.
Engine 224, go ahead.
Engine 224 is on scene, single-story manufactured home, asphalt shingle roof. We have fire showing from the Alpha Bravo side. Engine 224 is going to be Main Street Command. We're going to be mobile in the offensive strategy, performing a transitional attack on the Bravo side. We do have a water supply, Irix, and accountability by engine 224. Stand by for a 360 report. We do have a resident report on there.
Alarm copy, engine 224 is on the scene of a single-story manufactured home, pitched asphalt shingle roof. We have fire on the Alpha Bravo corner. Engine 224 will be Main Street Command. It will be offensive strategy, mobile command. We'll be attacking, making a transitional attack from the Bravo side. 360 to be completed. We have a resident reported all clear. Anything else I may have missed there? Couldn't keep up. Okay. Okay, whenever you're ready for your 360, if you want to give one, or are you okay with what you already did? Go ahead. No, if you want to add one to it, please, please.
Main Street Command to alarm.
Main Street Command, go ahead.
360 has not been complete. We've only been able to get a piece side to the house. We do have good knockdown on a transitional attack. We don't have any further hazards at this time. Again, we have a resident report all clear. We've been making entry to the front door that's going to be on the Alpha Delta side. We still are in offensive strategy.
Alarm copy, you do not have a 360 complete. You do have knockdown on the fire on the Bravo side. You will be making entry on the front Alpha Delta side, still in the offensive strategy. Okay, so just looking at this, for whatever reason, you didn't get a 360, maybe just didn't get a chance to, you're busy, a firefighter needed help pulling the line, whatever happened. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. So just good point that you didn't complete it. One, you're going to want to relay to command when they get there. If you don't get a chance to complete it, or the next company coming in, have them complete the 360. But certainly when command gets there, you do your transitional command. Make sure they understand I was not able to get a look at the backside, so somebody gets it at some point in time. Basically, we had that on there just to kind of point out that we don't get one every time. Sometimes it doesn't happen for whatever reason. It could be any one of 100 reasons. Sometimes we just forget. Sometimes it just didn't happen, whatever, rescue, whatever it could be. But just make sure we don't just ignore it. We want to get it addressed as soon as we can, just to make sure there's not something funky going on the backside. So manufactured homes, what are the challenges with them? Subfloor, right? You can see that probably a little skirt going around the back there. So another place for things to extend, right? Hidden fire, I'm sorry. Cheap construction, right? We got probably 2x2s for the walls. Maybe sometimes they're a little better, depends on how expensive they are, but a lot of times pretty basic units, right? So, I mean, they got paneling on the walls, which burns very quickly. Limited, some of these things are better. Obviously, some of the newer manufactured homes have wider hallways and other things, but certainly the other ones, the single wide stuff, when you start looking at those, you start looking about limited entry, limited access, difficulty coming in and out, fire spread. Anything else jumping out at us here? Anything we see that causes any concern for us? So transitional attack, probably certainly I would do a transitional attack before I made entry here. If it's obvious as you make your 360 or 270, if it looks like that, certainly to see the fire, I would certainly darken it down before I made entry. Any other challenges or problems with manufactured homes?
They typically have like a very small void space in the attic.
Yeah, and it may be literally, there's some that are 6 inches. Some of them have literally a 6-inch void space. I mean, there's still an attic, but just so it can certainly spread fire, but it's not going to be a big deal where you're going to be chasing fire over, through a giant attic with all kinds of buildovers and everything else. A lot of times it's pretty limited. And sometimes it doesn't have anything other than just the rafters and without anything. So if it's got a vaulted ceiling. So, okay, who wants to go next? Anybody online want to take one? Okay, if so, chime in next time here. So you ready for this one? So I'll give you about 30 seconds on each side here, so. Just whenever you're ready. Engine 206, go ahead. Alarm copy. You want us to balance this to a working fire first alarm assignment? Engine 206, go ahead. I can't write that fast. Good work. Alarm copy, engine 206, it was 206, right? Engine 206 is on scene of the strip mall, single-story strip mall, flat roof, got black smoke showing from the alpha side. You'll be McKellips command, pulling a 2.5-inch hand line to the interior on alpha side for fire attack. Accountability and IRIC will be at engine 206. What else did you say? I couldn't catch it. Is that everything? Okay, perfect. Go ahead. McKellips command, go ahead. Alarm copy 360 is complete. The fire will be located in suite 101. Utilities are located on the Charlie side. You'll be working toward progress on fire attack, making entry at the par of 2 with the water supply to engine 206. Is that most of it? Okay, let's go back and let's chat. Okay, okay, so what do we see to start off with? So we got a single story strip mall, right? Got what, 5, I think there's 5 doors on the back, so basically 5 suites, probably something like that. So not a big one, but I would call it a smaller, medium-sized strip mall. Obviously working fire there in the suite on the Alpha Bravo or Alpha Bravo corner there at the west side there. What do you want to call it? Southwest side. Okay, so what are concerns? What do we have? Strip malls, what are some of the challenges, please?
I think you get a pretty heavy amount of fire if you have sprinklers.
Okay, so we got some other things. So you got FTC right up front there. You got a big FTC that's going boom, 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 right? It should be telling you, we got a sprinklered building, but yet we've got a working fire. Why is that? Should at least raise some red flags for you. Now, it could be a number of things. It could be the system's down. It could be the amount of fire load inside here just overwhelmed the sprinklers, but something should raise at least a red flag for us, right? So good catch there. What else jumps out at us for strip malls? What are some things that we look at from the front that we just go, Mansard, right? Good way for fire spread, right? So it's something we're going to need to, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Common attic as
Yeah.
well.
Probably a common attic, right? Especially being this small. My guess is you're probably not going to have fire stops. You could. You may have a firewall, but I'm guessing usually with something this small, you're probably not going to, it's going to be a common attic. So whatever happens in this end of the building is going to work its way to the other side if you don't address it quickly. Same thing with the mansard. The mansard, it may stop there at the nail salon there, but it's certainly another avenue of fire spread between suites. So it's not something you might necessarily be addressing the first company coming in, but probably as additional companies coming in, you're going to want to address that pretty quickly. So handline selection, we take a 2.5. Is that the choice? I would.
That's great.
Chief Daniels, you comfortable with a 2.5 here? Okay, 2.5. Chief Daniels says as well. So good call on that. I mean, but practice has shown probably over the years, what do we take? Probably 50, at least 75% of the time into the recorder. Just that's our bread and butter. It's what we do. And I'll bet at least 50% of the time, if not more, in this same building, we pull an 1 3/4 interior, the first line. Hopefully somebody would stop the madness before too long and get a 2.5, but good call. I would pull a 2.5 here initially, and get that inside there to try to figure out what's going on and try to make an attack on the fire. So we got flat roof, we got a common attic probably, we got the mansard there, which is tile, but it's not, I mean, it's not part of the roof itself, probably not gonna be tile, right? It's probably gonna be a rolled or some kind of rolled asphalt or some other kind of roof, right? So we got, first line goes to the interior here with the 2.5. Where do we take the next line? Probably next door, right? So unless we had heavy combat going here, if you have heavy combat going in this one and you're really worried about, man, we got to get another 2.5 in here behind us or something else, you might back those crews up. But probably most times that second line is probably going to go to the suite next door, right? Just to see if we can cut it off, check to get us a quick fire, get a quick primary search and just check for extension on that the next structure over, right? So we go around the building. Please. I would say as soon as somebody can get to it. Now, if your engineer gets the line charged and he's doing nothing out there, freaking let's put a line into it. It's designed to be pumped. Obviously, we got a working fire. And now whether it's probably not gonna have a fire pump in this building. So it's probably gonna be water, but if somebody shut off the valve, obviously the FTC is on the downstream side of that. So being able to pump that, if somebody has shut off the valve to it, would be indicated. So I would say as soon as you can, I would do that, whether it's with the initial truck or the second truck coming in, or as soon as you can. Just I've also been to a number of buildings that have burned down and nobody ever pumped the sprinklers. So just sure. Usually, I mean, especially after he's got the lines charged, I mean, it's not that big a deal. If he's parked right out front there, stringing the line over there shouldn't be a big deal. I mean, after he gets the pressures and the line set there, shouldn't be something, or the second due engineer can help him if they get there or whatever, if it's not assigned as the full crew. So Delta side, I'm not seeing a whole lot there that's jumping out at me. Anybody else see something, please jump, let me know. Bravo, Charlie. So now we've got the utility. You look at the doors back there in the back. Looks like we've got 5, and sometimes suites are joined. So sometimes if you got 5 doors, that doesn't automatically mean you have 5 suites, because sometimes they take 2 suites and that kind of thing. But at least gives you a general idea that, and sometimes you also may have one of those doors as a utility door or something. So, but we got utilities right back here. Now looking at the door here, which will give you a little bit of an update on it. Is that going to be easy to get through? For a ladder truck, probably they can. I mean, it's a couple minutes, but for an engine company with a Halligan and a sledgehammer, are we getting through that anytime soon? Probably not, right? It's just a lot of work. I mean, it's one of those we just, with the right tool, it probably works pretty quickly. And Captain Liddell could probably comment on this, but this is something probably that you could, with a circular saw, probably take care of business pretty quickly and get that opened up if necessary. Okay. So then we're back to this side. So I think the 360 was a good 360. This is one of those that you asked for the balance of a first alarm. This is definitely a first alarm incident, probably going to go to a second, depending on the time of the year and how quickly we make progress with the 2.5, but probably want to go to if I'm command, it's probably going to take it to a second just so I have the tactical reserve I have necessary. But certainly going to go to a working fire first alarm on this without a doubt. So good call on the upgrade early on versus, just going to a working fire and piecemealing it. So good call on that. Chief Daniels, Captain Liddell, any other thoughts?
I'm just going to add one thing, and it's just an observation, not saying it's a guarantee, but whatever's going on in there, a lot of times with commercial structures, we've been teaching our ladder guys and trying to retrain some of them too, but this goes for anybody, whether you're an engine crew or ladder crew. A lot of the timber and a lot of the fuel in commercial structure, unless it's a metal-based roof, a lot of it is operating up above the sprinkler systems in that common attic space. So when I see this right here, one of the first things I'm thinking is potentially that fire could be raging in that upper area. If you go back to the back side, the Charlie out there, your scuppers are probably, just throwing it out, you're 10 feet off your roof line. But take a look at where you're at on your ground level. So you're still probably got a drop ceiling at 8, maybe 9 feet. You still got a couple open areas. So like this room that we're currently sitting in, our roof is quite a bit above this drop ceiling. So 2.5 to me is awesome because a 2.5 can blast this tile out pretty easily. But I would be deeply concentrating my attack on that roof as I'm going in. And we talk about that water mapping. I'd be coming in spraying straight ahead, but I'd be concentrating.
Holly, can you speak into a microphone?
Yeah, Paul,
Yeah, are you picking
you
it
guys,
up or no?
we thought the mic was on there. Are you guys able to hear that? If not, we'll repeat that. Anybody, can you try it again?
If he can repeat all that.
Yeah.
Thanks. Can you
All
hear
right,
me
hang
at all
on.
or no?
Hang on, we're gonna.
We got you now.
Oh, mic 2. How's that? Is that a little better? Yeah.
That's a nice.
Yeah, well, sorry about that.
I know you're just messing with me, but I'll go ahead and cover it again. I was just stating, looking at that from the front picture in the back. So we're on the back right now. And if you can see the picture, I was just discussing like with the scuppers, okay, the obvious roof line, but also stating there's a drop ceiling. It's more than likely a common attic. The amount of smoke that's coming out of that front of that structure, knowing that we're operating in a sprinklered structure, like Chief said, I think there's a good highly likelihood something broke down in the sprinkler system. It's potentially shut off, but that roof more than likely is wood truss parallel cord. There's a lot of fuel load in that upper area, which often is above your sprinklers because they're going to drop those sprinkler lines. So sprinklers don't always work effectively when that fire's in that open area up above, but it has the potential to run. Well, I was stating with a 2.5, I would come in there and be pretty aggressive towards trying to hit that roof, blowing that drop ceiling, which, because you probably got a, 5 to 6 foot gap between your drop ceiling and the roof of that structure. As an engine, I'm coming in there and I'm really concentrating on knocking that bulk of the fire down above me, as well as the ground as I'm advancing in. And that was kind of my comment, is that fuel is often overlooked. We don't always think, hey, if there's the tiles intact, that thing can be raging and running above you. I just think that 2.5 is the perfect right size hose for this operation. And you're going to get the most water and cooling effect probably with that.
Thank you, Paulie. So this is a situation where, once again, we're going to want to find out pretty early on whether or not this is room and contents or whether it's extended into the attic. If we have structural involvement, we get inside here and we have heavy fire in the overhead. How long are we going to stay in here? Probably not very long, right? If I'm command and I get a report back from interior that I've got heavy fire in the attic, I'm probably not going to be in here long. This is a commercial building. We're probably not going to have a life safety issue typically. Most people that can evacuate will evacuate. So I'm operating in the yellow to start off with. I've got structural members involved in lightweight construction, lightweight trusses, parallel cord trusses. I'm probably going to get out of here pretty quick. If I don't get an attack that knocks things down very quickly and changes the conditions, I'm probably going to back out very quickly. But it's something we need to identify. We're not going to, we don't go in there and drop, 4x8 sheets, but we should go inside and make sure that we identify whether or not we have attic involvement and relay that to command as soon as you can. That's going to be very important. And then obviously, like I say, if we have a common attic, are we going to send a ladder crew to the roof? Should. Right? Get somebody up there. He can give you a roof report on roof loading. He can give you a report on conditions, tenability. There's about 50 things that he can give you up top that's going to help you out. Once again, whether or not we're going to conduct vertical ventilation, hard to say. Depends on when they get up there, what they find and what they feel like they're able to do or able to accomplish. But certainly I would get a ladder crew up on the roof. Like I say, we talked about already getting that second line into the suite to the right. And then third line, where do we go with the third line? What do you think on the third line coming in?
Like stuff up if you haven't already.
Probably backing up that first, if we're still doing combat in that first suite, I probably would. I'd back that one up. Fourth company coming in, I'd probably have them go ahead and evacuate the rest of the suites, right? Check for extension, but just to do that. But I would certainly back up that first one. Then we got to also consider that RIC/on deck with rescue responsibility for too long. If we've got heavy involvement and we've got crews in combat and limited visibility, probably won't want to wait too long before I get a RIC team or RIC/on deck with rescue responsibility crew in place. If things go wrong, that's not the time to try to figure out how I'm going to redirect a crew that's working 3 suites down back over here to try to do things if you can, especially if they're down to about 50% air or something like that. So some good observations. Anything else about this structure that either anybody online or anything else concerns or questions or problems? Please, Paul.
Additional thing too, and I say construction, when we're talking about commercially, I think it's still pretty standard practice, but you showed that picture of that rear door. When we're talking commercial, I don't care whether you're on an engine or a ladder, there has to be a mind shift for us. And I think we're good at this, but we have to make sure that we're approaching this structure right here very differently than we do a house. This has the potential to change the game on us pretty rapidly. The construction is different. And so we look at places like that back door. I'm going to be softening that door. I'm going to definitely be going through that door, whether I'm the ladder crew first or second. I'm going to open that door and then resecure that door, but I want to have access to that. Oftentimes you have offices in the back. That's where potentially, if there's a high risk, I would consider the rear of the structure where the offices may be. If somebody's not going to exit or they're playing around trying to get money or trying to secure their stuff because they're the supervisor or whatever, that may potentially be. So just by opening that door, that protects the firefighters coming in through the front. And that was just just a quick observation, but I go to a commercial structure as a ladder guy, but I'm the same when I'm on an engine. I'm hoping somebody's thinking multi-level softening the building and making this building. So if something goes wrong, we don't have time to spend 10 minutes trying to cut that door. That should already be done. That structure's got enough fire to me to warrant us making sure that we can enter that structure immediately should we have that need, where a house, we might, be a little slower to do that.
Well, and if you noticed also, good observation, Paul, and if you notice, obviously, no other windows or doors. If you're not coming out the front of this thing, you have to come out the back. And trying to get out the back, once again, if this is double deadbolts and everything else they've got going here, not gonna be easy to do. I know with anybody that's ever looked into heard the report of the line of duty death we had in Tempe, we had the collapse that occurred and killed firefighter Ed Gakey, but there was 3 other people trapped inside the structure at the back of the building that were there and literally running out of air when somebody finally forced entry into the back structure, and 3 guys came piling out. Would have all been line of duty deaths if it wasn't for somebody opening it up. But it's one of those things back in my day, way back in the day, we didn't worry so much about softening the building, but we should now. I mean, this is something, certainly if you're on deck or something, this is one I'm grabbing a saw off the one of the ladders and trying to remember how to start that freaking thing without flooding it and everything else that we need to do. But I'm gonna go over there, I'm gonna freaking fire that baby up and open this thing up. Put a piece of cardboard in there maybe to close it so it doesn't just keep flopping open. We don't create a flow path certainly. But this is one I want to make sure that something goes wrong. I mean, for the $2,000 in damage to replace this door is nothing compared to, obviously you got damage inside here anyway. So it's nothing compared to the safety of knowing that if something goes wrong, if those guys head toward the back, they can smash into that door, it comes flying open, everybody comes out and we all go home hopefully. So good point.
Hey, Chief, this is Sergio for Station 201. Can you hear me?
Please, yes, go ahead.
Just real quick for some of those guys, if you guys have never forced a door like this open, one of the, I know it looks like a heavy duty door, but if you actually stick your ads in either above the security plates or below it, you'll pop that door. Those security plates are really just meant for pretty much robbers, not to make noise at night. But if you stick your ads in on top or the bottom, we've messed with those doors quite often. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I see is guys going for the security plates right off the bat, and it will make you waste time. But I'm telling you, if you stick it either above or below it and do it down and out, that door is going to pop open.
Sergio, thank you. That's I've never been a ladder guy, and it probably reflects. So I appreciate that. That's something, obviously, if we have the ability to pop those off and gain access into to open the door, certainly something we can do. Like I say, I've never played with these necessarily myself, so I appreciate the information, and definitely something that we can pop those off and gain access into the door and force this door. But definitely something we need to do. And if you can't do it with, if you're not comfortable doing it with the sledge and Halligan, grab a saw. We can do either one or both. So certainly I appreciate that. Thank you, Sergio. Okay, so we have somebody who wants to go next. Do we have a volunteer do the next one here? Okay, do we have somebody online that would like to give us an on-scene report? I gave you a little tease out right now. Anybody in here want to do another? Okay, we'll start on this end, work our way down again. Okay, so here we go. Here's the alpha side. Alpha Delta. Start looking for see things that may make you nervous. Anything jumping out at you? Charlie side. Alpha Bravo. All right, whenever you're ready.
Engine 218 to alarm on channel V.
Engine 218, go ahead.
Upgrade to working fire.
Alarm copy, engine 218. You want the balance for working fire.
Engine 218 to alarm.
Engine 218, go ahead.
Engine 218 is on scene at 360 Alpha 3. We have a single-story, single-family residence, block construction, pitched asphalt roof. We have heavy smoke coming from the attic. Engine 218 will be Alpha Command. Command will be mobile, will be in the offensive strategy, pulling an attack line. Going interior, search, rescue, fire attack. Current accountability will be at engine 218, 3 following the follow. IRA cool. Disregard the IRA. We will have 2 members in 218.
Alarm copy engine 218 is on the scene, single story at the dispatch address, single story, single family residence, block construction, asphalt shingle, pitched asphalt shingle roof. We have heavy smoke showing from the attic. You will be command will be mobile, offensive strategy, pulling an attack line, search, rescue, fire attack, 360 to follow.
Alpha command to alarm.
Alpha command, go ahead.
360 is complete. We do not have a resident all clear. The house does appear to be vacant at the time, under renovation. We do have smoke coming from the attic and the Bravo Charlie side. The 218 will be going interior to It's stopped right there. Renovation.
Alarm copy engine 218. We have no resident reported all clear. House appears to be vacant. You have smoke from the attic on the Bravo Charlie side. Engine 218 will be going to the interior for fire extinguishment. Okay, let's go back and talk. Okay, so we got ordinary construction here, looks like, right? Block construction, asphalt shingle. I'm guessing this is ordinary construction. Looks like with those telephone pole posts here, that's some pretty heavy duty stuff. But anyway, so we've got, looks like got smoke coming under the eaves. You got smoke coming from the back side and the roof. Anything here jump out at us? Got bars on the windows, right? We got kind of a lot of storage. It looks like I say, maybe a remodel, hard to tell here, but you got a lot of, sometimes it's just that guy with the eternal project that just never gets done. Other times it's maybe a remodel, but hard to say here. That's why we're doing a 360 to kind of verify. We got the utilities here. Nothing really jumping out at us there other than just it's on the opposite side of the involved portion. You know, the patio is in a little disarray here as far as conditions. So you always, anytime you start seeing stuff like that, you wonder what the conditions of the rest of things are when you have kind of things that are a little bit deteriorated. We come around the back, we've got smoke showing from a window as well as the whirlybird, and looks like the AC somewhere up there. Anything else jumping at us on the back? Anything we see up here that's causing us concern? Got bars on the door, back door again on the one on the left here. The one on the right looks like an addition probably, I'm guessing here. Kind of hard to say. Got a lot of stuff that just looks like it's, and I'm not sure if this is even, looks like it's even occupied. It may be occupied and just maybe one of those that just hasn't done a lot of upgrades in a while. So I'm not so sure it's vacant, but this is one where I'd probably, if I declared it vacant initially, as I do my 360 and look in the windows, I may change that report to say this is an occupied home. Just unfortunately not a real well-kept home, but that's not, I mean, that's not for us obviously to judge. It's just for us to base our tactics on. But you see stuff like, see those big panels of OSB there, you're going, is that part of a remodel? Is that part of a, you just scratch your head and kind of wonder what that is. I'm guessing it's maybe an addition that they closed in a patio. I'm not sure what's going on there, but anytime you have additions and stuff like that, it should raise a few red flags for you, just knowing that, sometimes it's a code, sometimes it's not. Just understand that just your standard layout may be different. You may have a kitchen in the front versus the back. You may have an extra bedroom that used to be a patio. I mean, just different things like that. So just understand that some of the normal stuff you may see is different. The fact that I've got smoke coming out the window on the far right side there probably makes me a little more nervous that it might be room and contents extended to the attic versus just a attic fire. So that's one, once again, from the front looks like an attic fire. When I get around to the back, I may update that. I may come back and say 360 reports complete. It looks like we actually do have room and contents fire on the Charlie Bravo Charlie corner. May have extension into the attic. So something like that probably would be an update that I might give here. Around the side here, once again, I've got pretty good smoke coming out of the thing. I don't have fire yet, so I'm not sure that I would do a transitional attack on that right now, because I mean, just based upon that, if I had really heavy, angry, black charged smoke with fire in it, obviously we would be doing a transitional on this side or something. But right now, I'm probably going to go ahead and make that entry inside and make that fire attack. Now back here, part of whether or not I come around back would be depending on what I see there. If I come around back and it's just smoke, or is this going to be the seat of the fire? If it's kind of one of those, so I don't know, am I going to bring the line around back and spray water in that window? May not, may or may not. It depends on what I'm seeing. If it looks like it's the seat of the fire, I look in the window and it's obviously this is where the fire is. But this one's kind of a hard to say because it's one of those, I don't see obvious fire. I've got some pressurized smoke. So there's obviously, it's in that side. It just may not be that room. So it's just one of those, it'd be a judgment call on your part, whether or not you make the attack there, or whether you come through the front door and work your way back. Other thoughts, Chief Daniels, Chief Lachlan, anything there on this? Follow anything? Okay,
The only thing.
please.
And I think we've all been outside, and I think just, I don't know what I just said. Calling something an attic fire or one of you, sets a call up to maybe go a different direction than what we would want. So be very comfortable clarifying. Not that an attic fire isolated, but. And I only say that because crews come in, right? We've all come in and listened to that report, and now I have sort of anticipated action that might change based on a 360 action. So like, and I look at this picture right here, I mean, are you all confident this is isolated out of fire? I wouldn't be either. To me, I want that 360 report, so now I have a much clearer picture of what we have going. To better outline my plan. That makes sense. So if you say, hey, it looks like I have an attic fire, then you do your 360, you know, it's clear that this is not a, make sure that's a real clarification. That makes sense.
And sometimes that can go the other way. Sometimes you may call it, we've got, bedroom fire or something else. You get inside and realize, no, it's actually an attic fire, but it's just pushing down through some of the vents, and I've got smoke coming out that window, but it's just kind of light smoke with the fire's actually in there. So either way, just clarify that and update it. From a command perspective, I can tell you, I appreciate it when somebody clarifies that, when I'm thinking, why the heck can't we figure this freaking thing out? Why can't we get the fire put out? And you realize, no, they're actually doing heavy combat on the first floor. They got room and contents, and I thought it was an attic fire. So clarify that stuff, especially with commercial buildings. Anytime you have something that's different than what you initially said, don't hesitate. It's not a mistake. It's just an update that we appreciate, and it'll the entire, not only the commander, but everybody on the fire ground, hopefully will, like I say, have a little better perspective of what's going on. All right, please.
That's important too. I've seen a lot of people go through a process where they know they need to clean something up, but they didn't because they got worried, oh, I already started down this path. And they said, you'll do far better by correcting yourself, and then that makes sense too.
Okay, who wants to go next? Please. And I'll give you 3 different views here, so.
Double down, new windows.
When you're ready.
Engine
2203 to alarm.
Engine 2203, go ahead.
You know,
Do you know if we work on fire first alarm commercial?
Alarm copies, we're going to upgrade to a working first alarm fire commercial.
Engine
2203 alarm on channel
E6.
Engine 2203, go ahead.
Engine 2203 on C123 North Main Street. We have a single-story block construction with pitched asphalt shingle roof, commercial strip mall. We have heavy
Smoke and
fire truck from Alpha
and
and Delta side. Engine 2203 is going to be Main Street Command, mobile in the offensive strategy, pulling a 2.5-inch line for a fire attack. We do have a water supply, high-risk accountability, go at engine 2203.
come up
for 360 report to follow.
Okay, I'm going to try on this. This was hard. Alarm copy engine 2203 on the scene of a single-story block construction asphalt shingle strip mall, small strip fall. You have heavy smoke and fire showing from the Alpha and Delta sides. You'll be Main Street Command. You'll be in the offensive strategy. Command will be mobile, pulling a 2.5-inch hand line for search and rescue fire attack. You have a water supply established. IROC will be established. You're conducting a 360 report to follow. Close? I made it all. Keep going, please. Whenever you're ready for your 360.
Main Street Command alarm.
Main Street Command, go ahead.
We're able to complete a 360. We do have bars, on the entire building, on the doors. We do have heavy fire showing from the Alpha and Bravo side. We're gonna be making a fire attack on the Alpha side, which is gonna be the CPR training side, so the engine side. We do have a resident report all clear on the fire involved unit, not the additional unit.
Alarm copy 360 is complete. You have bars on all doors on the structure. You have heavy fire showing from the Alpha and Delta side. You will be making a fire attack from the Alpha side. Alpha side will be the engine side. And we have a resident reported all clear for the involved occupancy only. That pretty much was for you. Okay, so let's talk about it. Okay, so obviously, small single story, it looks like probably a 4-suite, maybe something like that, probably 4 suites strip mall. So that's what I call a small strip mall. We've got ordinary construction block with asphalt shingle roof, probably common attic, I'm guessing here. So not a very big one, but a common attic, I'm guessing. You've got heavy fire showing from one of the middle suites, obviously that you identified as we work our way around. So we got suites on either side, 2 on the right, looks like 1 on the left. Go to the back, so we got a big old hot mess in the back, right? So we've got big freaking AC units hanging out there. We've got heavy fire coming out that rear door in right at the service drop there. So we're kind of should give us a little bit of nerve, or raise a little bit of some red flags for us. We got bars on all the rear doors there, right? So all things that, you know, we're okay to make the attack, and we're still going to make the attack. It's just things that are going to need to be identified and addressed, right? So from your perspective, the 2.5, I think, is once again the appropriate line. I don't think this is probably sprinkler. It's a little bit older building, so I'm pretty sure it's not sprinkler. So the 2.5 is what I'm going in the front door with. You know, once again, making your attack. We got a resident reported all clear on that. You know, once again, it's a trust but verify anytime you have commercial buildings, but I would start certainly from that perspective. Just understand that certainly as additional crews arrive, and if you're Rick with on-deck responsibilities, this is one we talked about before. We're going to soften the back of this building. You know, start with the obviously involved occupancy, watching out for the service drop there. It's one we're probably going to at some point in time, whether is maybe the second due BC when he gets there and starts doing a 360, probably going to lay out some red tape there to keep people away from that thing, because it's coming down at some point in time. Unless that gets knocked down pretty quickly, it's gonna drop, and it's gonna drop on whoever happens to be back there. So which is going to ruin somebody's day if they happen to be underneath it. So we're going to open all those rear doors, but obviously once again we're not going to create flow paths. We're just going to soften the structure, but then keep the doors closed. But keep in mind also when you're working toward the back of the structure that we got heavy fire load, heavy AC units above you. So we're going to be careful probably working our way to the back, especially with this thing. It's probably what, 50 feet deep, maybe. I'm probably just going to stay out of that back third. I'm just going to avoid it just from, you know, I'm sure with the 2.5, I should be able to reach actually from the front door to the back. But I can probably do everything I can at least to try to avoid that rear portion of the building if I can, other than completing my search or whatever if I need to at that point in time. But this is one that I'm probably going to just be careful with that and understanding that we've got a heavy roof loading above us here. Anything else that we've seen on this? Anything else jumping out at us on the 360 on this one? As somebody mentioned, this is when it's going to be hot in there. It's going to be, there's no windows, one door in the front, back door is closed. So when you go in here, this is one of those that's going to be, you're going to have to fight your way in, and it's going to be probably a lot of steam. You have to stay low, make sure you've got all your gear. This is one you got to make sure your collar's up and your hood's tight, because it's going to be a little bit of work for us. Is this one we're going to send a ladder to the roof? Sure. Right. I mean, and not only to give us the roof reporting, but this would be probably a pretty well-built roof. Be able to get up there, cut us a hole if we want pretty easily, probably, you know, and they can give us either the return we're looking for, especially after we get water on the seat of the fire. Once again, we need to get water on the seat of the fire, sufficient water on the seat of the fire, then we can cut holes and ventilate the crap out of the place. And then, then we can open things up and do what we need to do. Chief Daniels, anybody else thoughts, please?
Curious how many you would do it.
If I just be cautious of those overhead lines, if you're driving around and you see that, would you stop and then try to turn around and go back to the front? Or would you? So you're gonna stop. I think that delay to drive around 360.
And I'm not even sure as an engine company, right? I mean, this may be something where your initial on-team report, all the. That's in one second. And not right or wrong for discussion. If we are-
How against are you for having your third firefighter or second firefighter to do it for you? So the two of you are going interior, your engineers getting the water supply, bypass that.
What kind of training are you? Honestly, this is probably the most. So I would say. Now, I'm not opposed to going down and see the Delta site here, just looking down. So there are ways to expedite it, but make sure you clarify that as well. I'm not doing a full walk. I just been visible the back, Delta side. That's fine too. I mean, there's buildings that is obviously not going to happen. I'm probably honestly going to. Just because that's a big seat I really like. So, food for thought.
And, please go ahead.
What would your opinion on setting a ladder to the roof to do a roof attack? If you know it's kind of working its way up in the beams there, it's just a nail, get that 500 in there real quick, without any evidence of it being in the attic. Would you just hold off on that, get a good knockdown, and then just vent it?
Yeah, I think you're fine. Yeah, I just don't think you know. I wouldn't be surprised. Especially right where your ace is. I wouldn't be opposed to trying, I'd like to.
And if you look at it, I mean, this picture is not a great picture. It's not real clear, but there's fire obviously coming out almost floor to ceiling on the, so this is one where, I mean, it may be extended into the attic, but it would be one that I would be focused more on the attack on the room and contents, for lack of a better term, and then check for the extension and working the extension into the attic versus trying to attack from the down, from above down to below. But yeah, this is one that, once again, I would get a ladder to the roof. We can do a vent here. So we got our second line. Where are we taking our second line here? Probably the right. I think there's 2 suites on the right and 1 on the left, something like that. So probably going to go to the wide side. And that would depend, obviously, if we have wind blowing or if we can see that it's, if the one on the left is, a facility for, daycare versus, the one on the right is, something else that may be a little less high risk. And, I might take, I might modify that a little bit depending on what the suites are. If I take a quick look at what we have. But for the most part, we typically go to the wide side first and then the short side second. I would probably consider backing up that first line with another line, with my third line coming in personally, unless I've got obviously extension or if I need to get a search or something as a challenge on the one on the short side here. But with that much involvement and stuff, but I would also probably say, because this is probably no more than, I'm guessing, 1,000 square feet maximum. So a 2.5 in here should take care of business relatively quickly. I would think that if we're having to put a second and third line into this one suite, we're doing something wrong, or they've got, the 10,000 gallon fuel tank inside here or something funky. So there's something to consider. So please.
Quick. And I loved your question, man. I just wanted to clarify again, just my thoughts on it if I can. And I say from a ladder perspective as well, this may hurt some ladder people's feelings, but our job isn't to go and put that fire out, it's to support the operations. And most of the attacks, they're designed for a confined space operation. So in this situation right here, you've got a significant amount of fire operating inside the living compartment, if you will, or the operational area. The attic is really separate. So I mean, we're talking 2 different locations. Even if it's propagated into the attic, if I'm up there fighting that fire with a roof attack, and the seat of the fire is on the ground, we're not gaining anything other than just putting out that flue. So I can put it out, it's going to reignite unless somebody goes in there. And that's why we talked about that 360. If you've got an outside fire that's gone up the wall because it's plants or a tree, and now it's gone up into the attic space. You can put the attic out all you want. You can walk down and try and smash this thing out. But until you put out the seed of fire, really, that's what the isolated roof attack is ideally for. That kind of wraps it up. And commercially, we wouldn't be using this little 24-gallon a minute nozzle. We would probably want to go to the larger one. But even in that situation, I look at things like mansards. Even though this is a smaller attic space, I'm just throwing that out there. Not that a chief may not give me that. I might just say, hey, chief, just in this circumstance, I'm thinking this is more, it's not a roof attack. And for me too, I look at it for the risk benefit aspect of it. We're going to go up there, cut a hole and get down the roof. My goal is to get up and get down quickly. Roof operations can often take different. It can take longer. So kind of what Chief Bailey was saying is that, this thing has to be aggressive. You can almost stick your 2.5 at the front door and knock the heck out of this thing and get a pretty significant conversion to where me being a roof guy, I'd get up on the roof and I'd be seeing the white smoke and the change out. I'd see the conditions change, knowing you're getting that water in the fire, and then be able to communicate you and coordinate that, get that ventilation. So now you get the lift, so you're not, baking. But if I go into a roof operation, one of the things that you've seen them, if you've been around them a little bit, I don't want to call it an isolated, it's a singular focus kind of direction. Not that guys can't do a little bit of both. We may take the chainsaw, but again, they're kind of varying these different options as far as that goes. Commercially, it's not usually our go-to, for a lack of better. You want that big water, and I think you guys did it great today. You said, this is where we're looking at a fire situation. We don't pull up on too many buildings and see that kind of amount of smoke pushing out of both. I think a lot of us, myself and my generation, probably still going, pull the engine 3/4. I can only hope that you guys and some of our newer firefighters smile and grab the 2.5 and go do what they know they're supposed to be doing. And I'm not micromanaging which line to pull as much, because even if I was the 360, I'm thinking to myself, I got to tell my firefighter, obviously, very specifics, because we've had this happen where the captain got off and did the 360 and the firefighter did what? Did what they do. They go and start thinking they're going to go in and go fight fire, whether they saw a person or not, or if somebody comes out of there, oh crap, we got a rescue profile. They haven't communicated that. There's a lot of variables there, and I know we've covered a lot, but as a captain, and I'll leave it up to you guys, if you're in that position, you need to make sure your firefighters know, whoever they are, temporary for the day or your normal guy. This situation, that 2.5, you wait till I come back, I'm going to get that 360. That doesn't mean you can't be doing what we've been talking about, getting quick water on the fire, knocking that roof line down, keeping that 2.5 above anybody's head that may be still inside. But you're cooling that atmosphere in that environment, allowing us that minute to get the reset. And when the captain comes back, you do that transitional transition interiorly and get aggressive. So
Good point, Charlie, Polly. And you also look at this, if you look, and this is kind of hard to see, and just because it's not a great picture, but on the left side, there's a gable vent with nothing coming out of it. So, I mean, that even reinforces, once again, if we do the 360, now it doesn't mean the roof isn't compartmentalized or the attic isn't compartmentalized, but at least right here, I mean, that's one of the other things, just to reinforce that it hasn't got into the attic yet. And so looking at that, and once again, probably 50-50, somebody coming off with the size of this with 1 3/4. But if you're coming in second, or if you're given the second order coming in, back it up with a 2.5. I mean, if somebody does pull the 1 3/4 first, consider that 2.5 for the second line coming in. And one of the things also to reinforce with you, and this one probably be, and probably with this one as well, but don't forget the second supply line. Mesa's great with the 5-inch supply line. That freaking thing works like a champ. But I just saw in today's email about what happens when you have a failure of the 5-inch line. I haven't had a chance to watch that yet, and I don't know what the story is, but it happens. In Tempe, we were notorious for having bad hydrants. Freaking either the hydrant, the stem would break, or the line would rupture under the ground, or the dry hydrant. So many problems. So be careful about putting all your eggs in one basket with one line, especially commercial. We talked about that strip mall. We should have mentioned it a little while ago. Probably either if it's not the second company coming in, certainly your third company coming in and get a supply line. And if you got a pretty significant size fire in a commercial building, I'm probably having my first 3 bring in lines and have them strategically placed, because I know at some point in time, there's a good chance I'm going defensive. And I'm going to have people placed in proper positions. We talked about apparatus positions in a previous class, obviously outside the collapse zone, but have supply lines. So if we go defensive, we don't have to reposition a lot of people, right? So things to think about, but good reports. Anything else on this one? Anybody to add? Okay, who wants to go next? Okay, so let's work our way down. How about that? We got plenty more. Okay, let's see. This one, let's just talk about this one, and then I've got some more we're going to go to. This was actually a fire that occurred. Anybody on this fire? I'm trying to remember the location for it here. shoot, seemed like it was like, where you, okay. So I don't have a lot of the specifics on, other than I know, I believe it went defensive, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, but,
Heavy attic, start in the back patio.
okay. So we're just gonna take a trip around, we're gonna take a little trip down memory lane here. We'll just look at some of the things as we come up on this as a 360. So from the front, anything, obviously, the house is burned down here, but just if you picture this thing while it's intact, anything jumping out at you on the front that either gives you any concern or anything other than normal here? Just, the only thing that kind of just stands out just a little bit for me here, and it was kind of weird over there, so I don't know a lot about it, but they've got portable AC units in every room and a big AC unit on the roof. So it's just one of those you kind of go, huh, things that make you go, huh? So is it, is it separate occupancies? Is the AC up on the roof? They didn't have the $10,000 to replace it, so we decided to go with little room window. Don't know, but it's just one of those as you're making a 360, just something to keep in the back of your mind. Obviously, they've covered up half the window, so half of your escape route now is covered with OSB and a little AC unit. We'll just keep working our way around. So other than that, I'm guessing it's lightweight construction probably. This is probably built in the 90s, I'm guessing here. I don't know exactly, but, and Chief Daniels, please add in anything you see as we work our way around here. This is coming around on the, would be the, either the west side or the delta side of the structure. They've obviously booted the power box already, but obviously had heavy attic involvement. If we look through here, we got the gate coming through here. I'm not sure if somebody blew that open or if it was open already, but certainly made access. This is coming through the gate, what you're seeing, obviously block construction, so we're ordinary construction, not lightweight construction. So that may be one if we update, once again, we from the front, it maybe look differently, but it's block construction. So now we're talking ordinary construction. We've got an empty pool. That's a hazard for us, something we wanted to mention, obviously, on that 360, right, we talked about. So obviously, everything's burned up here, but as Chief Daniels mentioned, the fire started on the back porch. So we talk about, this is one where if we don't do the 360, we might think, I got to come in that front door and I got to make this big attack. And we spend 10 minutes attacking the fire inside and can't figure out why it's not going out. Well, because there's a whole bunch of crap on the back porch that's burning and it just keeps feeding the fire till we get to it, right? So this may be one where we come around and we may do the attack from the outside and then have another crew come inside and work from the inside as well, doing a combination attack here. But I wouldn't ignore the fire in the back, because until you get that out, it's going to continue to burn. And if it's feeding into the attic, it's going to continue feeding into the attic, no matter what you're putting water somewhere else, until you extinguish the fire. So we work our way around. Once again, we go around to this will be the Charlie side, then the Charlie Delta corner here. But looks like there was an AC unit in there. They pushed it out. So I don't know what's going on there, just other than just maybe some unusual behavior, or unusual building construction, but just something to see. But obviously, we've got attic involvement with the gable end. So Chief Daniels, you want to mention anything about this as far as anything that was either unique or?
One of the challenges you guys noticed the roof line here? So basically the midpoint of the roof, right, you have a small step up. That's probably about an 8-inch drop off from one line down to the second one. We weren't sure if we had separate attic spaces. This was a very challenging fire. It took us quite a while to get it out. So the assumption is that we did have kind of void spaces up there. Yeah, it was defensive kind of from the get-go. We had a neighbor report, this is Chief Darling fire actually, but a neighbor reported that the car in the driveway, usually that person is home when the car is there. So he had a crew go in and do a real quick all clear. And once we got the all clear, we went defensive on it. And we chased our tail for quite a while on this one, to be honest. Hit every gable end, hit everything we could think of, and this thing just didn't.
Yeah. And that happens, I've been so many that have, they're pretty humbling sometimes when you think, I can't believe it's seeing it going out. We've got 50,000 gallons of water in the thing at least, and it's still burning. But, we're safe. Everybody's outside the structure. We're safe. And this is, we didn't start the fire, so we're putting it out. And so it's a success from that perspective. I think we need to look at things that way. Sometimes we kind of look at it and go, well, it was a failure or something. No, it wasn't. We got an all clear on the structure. Nobody got hurt. And the fire went out, so I think this is a success. It's just sometimes these are, nobody wants to go defensive on a fire if we can help it. So anything else, anybody questions, thoughts on this, anything from anybody? Okay. So this is the conclusion, and I've got a couple of other scenarios if somebody wants to do some more here. So just to understand, it's imperative the first arriving company officer completes a 360 survey to identify the obvious as well as unseen hazards that exist in an emergency incident. Survey will help to ensure the correct strategy is implemented and the appropriate initial company actions when following assignments are executed to our overall safety. Just understand the information along with the orders and assignments or follow are critical for the outcome of the successful outcome of the event. Also, just want to appreciate those. I've got portions of other people. You probably have seen some of these slides before. And so I plagiarize the crap out of stuff from other people. I add my stuff and certainly use other things that other people have developed that's very beneficial and good. So obviously Eric's not in here now, but I use some of his material and Captain Barnhart's and Kevin's and a number of other people. So I do use other material as well as everything I can find on my own and create on my own, but just so you know that I thank those folks as well. I'm going to show you real quick here. They had, let's see if we can find it real quick here. The incident that occurred the other day. Sorry. I was going to show you the basement of that house with the fatality that occurred here. Okay, here it is here. This occurred last week. And this is the residence itself. A big house. Let's see. I'm going to go through here a little bit. You can see these are monster house on 11 acres. This is the first floor here, backside patio area. Well-constructed home, very high-end home, $1 million home. This is second floor patio. Second floor, yeah, nice place. Yeah, this is something. You got to be like a Captain Medic to afford that one. But so, but you'll see one thing that jumped out at me. This is one, like I say, a basement house. Right here, if you can see around the corner, it's hard to say. I wish they would have zoomed in, and I can't zoom in on here. There's a stairway going down to a basement. And it's the only thing. I don't see any other window wells that I can find. It's an unfinished basement. You'll actually see a picture of it here in a second. No window wells that I can see other than that stairwell. So this is where a 360 locates it. Without it, you don't. And they had heavy smoke showing. They talked to a lady that called in the fire, said heavy smoke showing when they called it in. Guy goes in the front door. You can see, you'll see some of the front inside pictures here in a second. But this is the back patio. They say that the entrance to that basement around the corner there. But this is, they walk in here, you think this is freaking beautiful. You can walk in the front door and you fall right through here or whatever. They say he literally came in the front door and fell into the basement. So this is just inside here somewhere. I'm not sure how far, but I'm guessing somewhere in this area here. Got a tile floor. May not have been able to see it with the thermal imager. Don't know. Doesn't matter. But he fell through right off the bat. When it was a Mayday situation, took him a while to get him out. But you can see, obviously big, pretty place, a lot of high-end stuff here. I think there's one picture you'll see the picture of the basement door in a second here. But this is one that somebody mentioned earlier when we can benefit when somebody says, you say, hey, I've got a basement, and you say, where's that stairwell? Because there it is. Don't know can't tell for sure which room this is. Maybe just inside the front door. I'm guessing maybe an office. I don't know, but hard to tell. Once again, if you're feeling along the wall and that door's closed, you can even find it. You could go by that thing 2 or 3 times and not figure out where this thing is. Somebody mentioned earlier about, hey, ask, this is where we're doing that RP. We talked to the RP about the resident reported all clear. Finding out they have a basement and where that door is to get to it may be important. Save ourselves some time. This is the unfinished basement here, unfinished basement. It's a big one. And it's probably another 1,200 square feet, probably at least. So, not easy. And you look at the trusses there. Look at the little cheap, cheesy little trusses there. 2x3s, I'm guessing, open parallel cord trusses. Little gusset plates there. Not a well constructed fire in the basement. So this is a challenge for us, right? It could be a real problem. So just those things we try to remember as we do our 360 and stuff, how important it is for us to keep that in mind and then understand building construction and some of the things associated with it. Okay. All right. Please.
I just have one comment too.
Yes.
I hate to say it sounds a little nitpicky, but something I noted and just in my own personal experience, I want to share with you guys and anyone else. So great on-scene reports by you guys. I think across the board, excellent tactics. One of the things I heard most of you, I think 1 or 2 of you might have changed it, but you start off and you go, hey, engine 209 to alarm on channel B3, and we're operating on Echo 6. And where that sounds small, here's where it was a big deal for me. I can tell you from my captains. So we always ran everything on channel 2, and we'd go through these drills and we'd be like, blah, 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 blah on channel 2. And then there was plenty of times where channel 5 was our backup, which for us, we do that right now for all 5, right? So you make it assign B3. If you are planning on testing and you get in those habits, I just want you to think exactly about it because I was just talking with Chief Daniel about it. For ours, they threw us a loop and they threw you on C5 and it wasn't a major fault, but it knocked a lot of the people that were doing process because they would revert back to engine 201 to alarm on channel C2 and they would just roll through it and not pick up that we're operating on channel C5. So as little as that is, I know we're on a tactical side, but just think about, take your breath, hold it for a second, think about what you want to say. But I mean, it may pay dividends, but I tell you, we had real incidents. Guys are like, engine 203 to alarm on channel, you know, you may have rolled to C5, and now you're saying on C2, like you're operating on channel, your traffic's on channel. So just again, I think it's a great thing to use. Think about the channel as you're, like I said, if you're truly operating on a different channel, put it in your mind so you don't get in the habit of just saying B3 because until you get the real deal, you're going to get on fire and then you have to bring back B5 channels.
I've given some of my best on-scene reports on the wrong channel. And you can never recover on the second one. You can never recover when the alarm room says, engine 207, you're on channel B3. Now you're all flustered. You're trying to figure out, now I don't remember what to say. So, but it does happen, Paulie, and that's a good point. Not only that, but making sure your crew understands that because, you know, you may be looking at the MCT and seeing it as B5. But like I say, 90% of the stuff we're going B3. I mean, so I mean, it'd be real easy for the crew in back has the radio still on B3 or whatever it is, and they just automatically went there. So making sure and getting on the right channel. I mean, it's a Mayday issue. If you start looking at some of the Mayday stuff that they talk about being on the wrong channel, is a huge problem.
And now on VHF, and I've done it recently, I've got called back, right? So I'm up there and I roll to BB3 so that I can hear the traffic as we're rolling in, and I'm bonking and bonking, and I'm sitting there for probably 20 seconds getting pissed going. How am I not? Then it dawns on me.
Yeah.
I can't transmit on that.
Now let me ask. Yeah.
Anyways, make sure, I always recommend, put your handheld for me. I know I'll put it on the right channel. I put it in my pocket so I don't mess it up. Put the truck on BB if you need to.
Yeah, let me ask you that now. In some cities, BDB deck is only available to administration. Is it line guys have, everybody radio has it? So big issue for you, yeah, because you can listen, it's great to hear, because you can hear from a distance, but you can't transmit. So make sure you're not operating.
And talk to the thing. I think it was a safety. That's why you guys don't have that.
Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, they don't, yeah, they don't even put it on the other radios in Tempe other than, yeah.
Tell the firefighter, hey man, you need to monitor BB3 and go on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You guys don't have them for that very reason. You could get in a Mayday situation.
Can't transmit. Because you can hear everything.
And then turn the radio back on because then your radio resets to channel C1. You know it's monitored. You know that it'll take a hit if you hit your red button. And at least then you can voice who you are. They can at least figure it out. That was the other sidebar. That's their safety mechanism. Not allowing somebody to get on the handheld.
Yep. Good point, Paulie. Okay, who's next? Where are we at? Okay, here we go. This one's a little bit different, a little different program, so you'll see a couple different views here. So it gives you an area view. So you're flying the drone while you're coming in. Okay, so this is going to be your different views here. I'll give you 30 seconds or so on each side. So let me go back to the front. And okay, so whenever you're ready.
Ladder 209 alarm.
Ladder 209, go ahead.
Upgrade first alarm.
Alarm copy, upgrade this incident to a working fire first alarm.
Ladder 209 alarm on channel E6.
Good call. Alarm to ladder 209, go ahead.
Is on the 700 baseline. We have a commercial structure, an auto zone, and the block structure with a digital roof. Heavy smoke and flames coming from the delta side of the structure. Ladder 2 and 9 will be assuming baseline command. Command will be mobile, will be hawking the corner 2.5-inch hand line, doing a transmission attack on the delta side through the van door. High risk accountability, water supply comes down ladder 2 and 9, about a 3-4 follow.
Alarm copy letter 209 is on scene and dispatched address, commercial structure, block roof with tile, block construction with tile roof. This will be an auto zone. Your baseline command, you're pulling a 2.5-inch line for fire attack, transitional attack through the man door on the delta side. You have a water supply, 360 to follow your offensive and mobile command.
Command alarm.
Baseline command, go ahead.
Completed 360. I have clear conditions through the front door and where all the exit. We're getting good knockdown on the fire on the delta side. We'll be transitioning to the interior of the park too. Also, we have utilities on the Charlie side. Go ahead and start me an additional ladder, please.
Alarm copy 360 is complete. You have three clear conditions on the interior of the structure and the merchandise portion of the structure. You are getting good knockdown on the fire with the 2.5. You're going to be transitioning to the interior. You have utilities located on the Charlie side, and you would like to request an additional ladder company. Anything else on that? Did I miss? Okay. Okay. So let's talk about it. This is, you got your on-scene report. You talked about. So this is one, once again, can you get a 360 on this as you come by? Maybe as you're coming in, if you look at your routing, you know, can you see three sides? Maybe if you're coming in on 57th Street there, heading northbound, make a left and come just past the structure, you're gonna see all four sides, right? But you may not be able to see it as clear as you want. There's still maybe one where you may want to, I mean, because a drive-by is probably, you're gonna be in there still trying to find your, you push the talk button, you're trying to get your helmet on, you're trying to do all this other stuff. So being able to get a real good, clean drive-by 360 may not be perfect here. So we're probably still gonna want a good 360 when we're done here. So we pull up there, obviously on the Alpha Delta corner, we've got a working fire. It looks like in the delivery door, roll-up door there, that we can see obviously fire coming out of the structure. The front Alpha side, which you identified. And once again, calling it an auto zone. Are all auto zones built pretty much so alike? They are. I mean, you may find one a little bit different, but I mean, probably 90% of the ones I've been in look just like this one, right? I was in one yesterday, so it looks just like this. So, you know, not unusual. So calling it, you know, a McDonald's or calling it an auto zone. Now, if it's a Red Mountain weight loss, I mean, we don't automatically go, oh yeah, that's this building. We don't know. So, I mean, that would be different, but this is a situation where we're probably identifying it. Makes sense. Also brings up a few other things. AutoZone, what should be a few things that probably jump into your mind right there as far as contents. What's that? We got some hazmat issues, right? Probably adding maybe a hazmat component at some point in time, if not right away, early on. I mean, pretty on from a commander's perspective, because we know we're going to have freaking everything from antifreeze to oil to batteries to all kinds of crap in there, right? So just some things to think about. So tile roof, is this fully tile roof or can we tell? Let's see if we can go back and see here. See, this is one of those where that it's kind of like one of those apartment complexes. Sometimes you look at it and go, it's a freaking tile roof. We're not going up here. But an aerial view shows you that we certainly could get a ladder to the roof here, right? If we needed to. But we don't know. But this is one where we find out. This is one where we may say that initially because from ground level, it looks like it, right? If you looked at the front, you'd probably think it looks like a tile roof. But this is one where at some point in time, somebody might clarify that and say, we actually have just some built up, some tile decorative portions of the building that we actually have a flat roof up there that we can actually get up and work on if we need to. So just, we talk about updating things as we find out that information. And this is one also, once again, out of the 316 items you have to do on the way to a fire, you guys have aerial view that you can look at, right? If you actually had the time to go to that screen for 5 seconds and look at it, you actually could tell right there that it isn't, that you actually have a flat roof, that you could go to the roof if you needed to. So we look at here, we're looking, do we see anything as far as scuppers or anything yet on this? Anything jumping out at anybody yet that we see? Just point it out if you do see something that scares you. Like I say, the fact that we have clear interior conditions, what does that indicate for us? Could be one of two things. It's either in the attic or it's confined to the back, which this situation, we obviously know we got fire coming out that door. So we obviously have a fire in the back, but maybe there's a separation in between there, it looks like. So the fact that we have clear conditions and I can see fluorescent lights above is a good sign. Now, one of the things as we come in the front door, we need to make sure that we check to make sure it's not in the attic above us, but probably going to see something. But anyway, there's just something to think about, but it's certainly a good sign as we make our 360. So we got a couple of doors on the side here to become, what's that? Yeah, so we got scuppers on the back. So we got what was that, probably a 4 or 5 foot parapet, maybe, I'm not sure, somebody. But anyway, so we got a parapet, obviously. So just something to keep in mind as we go up to the roof that, yeah, so it's not a huge parapet, not something we're gonna have to, hopefully we're not gonna jump off the ladder to, but it's not gonna be an easy one to, I mean, it's not a huge problem for us. So we got utilities over here. Are we comfortable shutting off security, or securing utilities here? Would you guys be okay with that if somebody sent you around to secure utilities here? Probably. I mean, this isn't one, I'm not, it's not one that's bigger than me. If anytime I walk up to a shut off that's taller than me, I start getting nervous. But this year, I'm probably pretty comfortable walking up. I see a couple of switches. I probably figure I can yank that thing and shut those things off if I need to. Go ahead, Polly, please.
Vents too, so you can like shut off the little vents, and I don't know, my initial gut tells me that's probably your battery charging area where they're venting.
Ventilation system in there somewhere?
I'm not gonna have washers and dryers.
Yep.
Yeah, they're gonna be venting something out of there. So in my head, I'm thinking, what do they got? We know they charge batteries, they have different kinds of things. That's the type of stuff that they have.
Little hood system maybe there or something there that's blowing us, yep.
It's turned around or something where maybe they needed that, but more than likely it's probably a battery system or something set up there. So another high area fire probability, I guess.
Yep. So anyway, if you're on the ladder, you happen to be the engineer that gets assigned to secure utilities. This is probably one that, like I say, I would probably feel comfortable if I needed to secure utilities, taking care of that there. Obviously, as it gets bigger than that, sometimes we have to be careful. And then obviously we had the roll-up door with the working fire inside. 2.5, good call once again. This is a 2.5 situation. You got a commercial building with heavy fire and a loading zone, loading dock, whatever you want to call this. This is one that I'm certainly going to pull a 2.5 to make an attack here, and then based upon that, certainly probably have my second company lay a supply, or second or third company bring a supply line into to another side of the building potentially for so if we end up going defensive on something like this. But 2.5. How about our second line? Where are we going to bring our second line on this thing? Either back them up or the front door, depends on how they're doing here. If this is a heavy combat deal, they're down on their knees, I mean, they're crawling through here and they're getting the crap kicked out of them. Yeah, I'm probably going to come back them up here. If they're getting pretty good knockdown and making a pretty good attack, I'm going to probably send another company, and it may either be 1 3/4 or a 2.5 on the front side, depending on whether or not we've got fire involvement in the involved portion of it. Now, keep in mind, just like if you guys know the Tarver incident, it was clear conditions when they were inside there. Clear conditions in the front of the building. So even though we're looking here and going, hey, this is clear. How bad can this be? How dangerous can it be? Things can change dramatically and very quickly. For example, if you have fire in the attic space here and one of the ceiling tiles, you pull a ceiling tile or it comes down, you can fill this place up with heavy brown smoke or black smoke in this thing in probably 30 or 45 seconds. And if you're on a hand line back in there, weaved your way in between a few of those aisles and you're back where all the parts places and everything else are back there now, you go to zero visibility now where things just change, right? Our ability to get in and out has just changed. We need to make sure we're staying on the hand lines and that kind of stuff and not getting off and freelancing or moving around too much. Those are things we need to be careful of, because I've literally seen large structures filled with smoke in a matter of seconds. We had, any of you that may have been around a long time, we had the Kyrene school fire, the gymnasium portion, big gymnasium, if you guys have been in those things 100 times, light smoke, just a haze in the building, 3-in-1 assignment. Everybody got released, but one company, they were still checking because it just had a little bit of a haze. Guy on a scissor lift in there. They got one of the firefighters in turnouts, no SCBA. We've already sent everybody else home. We're sitting there smoking and joking in here with the crew. Guy on a scissor lift goes up there to the top because they thought it was one of those mercury vapor lights that are in there. The big mercury vapor light, thought maybe it was a ballast or something like that. Goes in there, he's up there messing around with it a little bit, slides over one of the ceiling tile, heavy brown smoke just goes boiling out. And so you can imagine, he's trying to come down with a firefighter as the smoke is literally doing this. And they disappear into the smoke. He doesn't have an SCBA on. We don't have a supply line. And I'm talking, they filled that whole building, which is probably maybe 100 by 50, in probably 60 seconds or a minute and a half. And it was, brown, nasty brown, and it had been working fire, been hidden in one of the crickets up there, been burning for we don't know how long. And that thing filled with smoke in just a matter of, literally a minute and a half or 2 minutes. And so, it was the longest 45 seconds for that lift to come down and get those people off that we've ever experienced. And then, of course, now we go to a first alarm, end up, if you haven't seen the video, hopefully you'll see it. One of the other things we test as we teach But we're up on the roof trying to do a trench attack and trying to do all kinds of different things. And we're up on the roof for like 35 minutes. We've got, I think, 3 ladders on the roof, a battalion chief up on the roof, which how many times does that happen? Not very often, right? So we've got this operation going on for a long time. We finally say, hey, this thing's been burning a while. We start bringing the crews off because we're kind of thinking about letting this thing go. The battalion chief is standing up there. It's on the side of the roof. They got a little ladder that goes up and it gets on another portion of the roof that's a different part of the classrooms or something. He's standing up there talking as the roof collapses. About a third or half of the roof just comes, and it's pretty spectacular to see. And you can hear the excitement in his voice, as you can imagine, as the roof collapses next to him here. But we were probably 5 or 10 minutes away from having 12 people up on that roof. We were there a long time, shouldn't have been. It's one of those we should have didn't been. We were operating in the yellow at best. Shouldn't have been, but it was one of those we were kind of complacent. We weren't finding a lot of fires, a lot of hidden fires, a lot of little pockets in the corners. This whole little cricket was burning around the outside edge of this thing. But anyway, so just what I'm just telling you is just the lesson to be learned here is don't get complacent when you go inside a structure with a working fire that you have clear conditions, because things can really rapidly deteriorate. Okay, so we are about out of time. Do we have any thoughts or questions on anything on this fire here? Anything else we've done today? Chief Daniels, Chief Lachlan, anything you want to add to wrap things up here? Polly? Okay. Well, for those of you that are online, we appreciate your participation in the program. We'd love to have you anytime that you're comfortable and you'd like to join in on some of the simulations. You're certainly welcome to it. Our next class, as we talked about, will be Reading Smoke, the third Tuesday in September. We appreciate those of you that are here and your willingness to participate in the simulations. These are always challenging and sometimes difficult, but we appreciate your doing so. So unless you have any other questions or thoughts, we appreciate it and hope you guys have a good, safe day, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you. Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Short minutes today.